All the lead battles have been wiped out with a full course yellow in the season finale of your Majors Team Endurance Championship finals here from the Sebring International Raceway. I'm Jake Sperry, Derek Watson, and Michael de Turk are alongside me for the ride. Ryan Bauer is on the cameras and he is directing them, provided by Dougie Beard. It has been an up and down race that we've had here over the course of what we've had. Some championships still to be decided out there overall, but one thing is going to be for certain, that in a full course yellow like this is where drivers are going to decide, do they want to come in, Michael, or do they not? You would suggest that with the way that the LMP2s had just finished a pit stop cycle as the caution came out, that they are maybe less likely to dive in than those maybe who are in the GT category, who are closer towards a window, which is not good for the number 64 Satellite Racing Red team, who need to get back on the leading lap to have any chance of victory and title contention.
Yeah, most of the LMP2s are 5-6 laps into their stint. Satellite Racing Red 7 laps in. So, you know, it's tough. They're doing 21-ish lap stints, I believe. Jake, you know, strategy calls when I'm a driver always feel so much easier than when I'm not. When I'm the driver, I go, yeah, just give me fresh tires and more fuel. Let's go. I don't care. But when you're sitting outside the car, you have to balance the expectation of where is this going to bring us out? How is this going to affect us at the end of the race? And, you know, that's a much tougher call, as we're going to see most of the field peel in here and take at least tires and fuel, or at least tires, if not tires and fuel.
I see 4th position diving in, I see 5th position diving in, 6th and 7th will also come in, and that's perfect for the championships out there overall as they go through. In though is the composite performance 91. You get a look at how stacked the pits are. Well, they are absolutely nose to tail here, Derek, in the pits. You can't fit much more between them than that.
No, pit road has been tight every time we've had a yellow. This is our 3rd yellow of the day, Jake, and it's been tight every time we're seeing the composite performance 91 come off pit road here. We've seen lead changes on pit road today, even we saw earlier when Ross Booth gave up the lead due to other teams having faster pit stops. So always a busy time here in pit road.
It's always a busy time. There is Ryan Carwile, the 087 out there for BRT Loki, and they will be searching for a good amount of pace to charge back on forward. They are pretty much the bridge at this point, or they were at the time, the bridge between the quality cars, because both the quality cars have jumped BRT Loki then in the stop. So it is now direct between the 024 and the 074, and you could argue the 063 as well, in that LMP2 AM category, Michael, because those three right now are 1, 2, and 3 in their championship, 1, 2, and 3 on the points as they look to charge forward with what they want. So now here's how it's going to work. GT3s will go to the right-hand side, LMP2s will line up to the left, and that is to shuffle the field back into racing order.
Yep, we're going to see these guys get all sorted out here and get ready to go when we finally get the restart. As a driver, I can tell you that when the caution comes out and you've worked so hard to build up that gap, it's so disheartening. It's another one of those instances that we talked about earlier where I personally really need somebody from my team to just, you know, talk me through it, keep me calm, say, look, you built up this gap, you're going to be fine, we'll do it again, it's not a big deal. But as a chasing driver, when that caution comes out or somebody gets held up by lap traffic and you get that little bit of boost, oh man, do you get hungry and just, you're ready to go and just take that position.
You certainly are. So Pro-Am interesting. Then you've got LMP2 and GT Pro, all championships that need to be decided here today, tonight, wherever you may be over the course of MTEC. You say as well, GT Pro, a lot more secure in terms of what is looked for in that category, but it is going to be worth its risks as they go out. A number of cars have found retirements over the course of today, including a non-start from the 261 Quality Control Racing team. Satellite's GT3 AM efforts, their push for second in the championship over and done with. So too the 255 GT3 and the likes, of course, of BRT Odin that you got going through, or as they have tried to push, they haven't quite got it right. Both of the Torque Sim Sport cars in trouble. Satellite Blue currently now down 32 laps on the lead, and the 079 down 24 laps. The last runner at the moment is the M-Plower Eisenblut machine, 21 laps down in 21st position, meaning that we're down to a pretty much even split right now, 10 and 11 in class, Derek.
You know, yeah, it's been a pretty even race as far as attrition is concerned, but something's on my mind right now, Jake and Michael both. For the first time this race, we're going to have different strategies coming out of a caution. There are a few cars who stayed out in the LMP2 class. It's only 6 laps. It's not much difference. But at most, we can only have one more yellow in this race. Those guys have put themselves on a different cycle, and the calculator in my brain's trying to work it out. I don't know who's going to benefit from that yet. I'm not sure.
Well, it's all about who can find the right benefits, and we'll have to keep counting on back with the strategies that's gone through. This will save them an extra lap or so of fuel, with the fact that they're just trundling around, but they'll get themselves back to running. Martin Zayeveld and the Apex Missers number 9 in control of the field. The championship contenders, Blue Chew Black in second position, and then you've got Composite Performance 13 in third. This is by no means a done deal out then on circuit, and they will get themselves another element of rolling around before they get themselves back to the green flag running that they need, as they are now put into the single file run. But this is where you start looking around and saying, well, who is where? You've got 5 drivers in GT, Michael, on the lead lap, and they're together, including both of the category leaders, and one car which has been head and shoulders above in the GT3 Pro Am, and that has been the twin-turn sim racing Porsche, the 223.
Yeah, they've really been running a nice race here, and you know, to get that caution and just be able to relax for a minute and maybe cool the, oh, I'm sorry, they did come in and pit, so I was going to say to cool the tires down, but no, they've got nice fresh tires, and you know, to be able to sit there and be ready to go and hopefully jump onto the 191 and the 107 and make a good run here before the LMPs come back through, I think they're in a nice spot.
Yeah, so Composite Performance losing out then in the stop to Shimon Graf. They came in. Graf did not, it maybe looked like. So it looked like Robert Carsten dropped back the 4 or 3 places in the middle. So lap traffic is not recommended motorsport. It's going to be the M-Plower Eisenblut machine, and then the 105 Century Sim Esports with James Whitehouse behind the wheel. So Robert Cast 3 to unpack to get through. And that's all going to be before they go back to racing. But now here's where I'm going to pose the question, Derek. You've got the 2 quality cars, which are their 5th and 6th, or 2nd and 3rd in class. They've got to get by the Blue Tube Blue machine. Do you do it now? Do you wait an hour and see how the race develops? At what point do you go, I need to wrest control of this race?
Sorry to cut you off. You go now. We're on a restart. These are valuable. These are when everyone's packed in together, and yeah, you go now if you want to get around them. You take advantage of this and see what you can make of it. There's going to be multiple passes here happening, I think, on this restart. I'm excited for this one, and we're about to go green here, but I think there'll be lots of passes. Satellite's going to try quickly to get ahead of that leader, I think, out of the 4th or 5th in line. Quality's going to try to get around Blue Chew. It's going to be an exciting restart, I think.
Yeah, I agree, Derek. I would go immediately. If you get the opportunity here, you take track position, no question. Even though we're still 3 hours and 14 minutes from the end, you got to go if you can.
You may not get this opportunity again. We're not guaranteed another one of these. This could be the last one.
3 hours, 13 minutes and 55 seconds worth of green flag running could be available to all of these drivers. It could, though, on the flip side, not. And that's what you love about this series. You never know when you're going to quite find what is needed out there. Track conditions at the moment are interesting. It is gusting about a little bit, quite windy at the moment. 11 miles an hour, 18 kilometers an hour. Track temp at a very nice 99 Fahrenheit at this moment as we're going through the middle of the day as it goes up to 100, but that should come down in the next few hours or so as we rush towards the evening, because we are at in-sim time 4 o'clock in the afternoon in the next 40 seconds. But they restart this lap, pace and control of Martin Zayeveld, and he's going to get a really nice launch as we get ourselves back underway. Spin already in the back of the pack, and it's one of the GTs, and it's the Composite 12 who's gone around. Franco Margarella finding out why it's difficult off of the start and able to continue going. There's the look then through turns 2 and 3, or 3, 4, and 5, I should say, as they run through the opening section. Zayeveld with a pretty solid start then to this restart, but already Nathan Zhu has clawed that gap back here, Michael.
Yeah, that's right, Jake. I admittedly was watching the GT field, and the Composite Performance 91 got a huge jump at the start there. And as we're seeing a replay of the 212, who I believe is who you said spun here, we're going to see him coming through Sunset right at the restart. Oh, he just gets tagged from behind. He slowed up a little bit for that traffic in front of him, and just the timing between the two didn't really work out. Just a little bit of an accordion there, and just got tapped, unfortunately.
Soon Race Control has something to say about that a little bit.
Yeah, I assume they will, because they will note that that is not what you're supposed to do off the start. You're going to have to be very alert to it, and that would have been the BRT Heimdall team, Elias Rahman, then with that run on board then with a driver's eyes perspective from Blue Chew Black. They want to take control and take the championship in style. How do they do that? Well, they've got to go to the race lead. They'll move to the inside, heading towards Sunset Bend, looking to make the pass that gets it sorted. Zayeveld leaves all of the room, and now through into the race lead goes Blue Chew Black. Composite Performance sit and wait, and so too the 1 lap down Satellite Racing Red team, who absolutely need to run the gauntlet here and get by these drivers. They need to get back on the leading lap.
Speaking of Composite Performance, Jake, if you don't mind, if we can go look at the 91, as Michael was saying in the GT3 class, they got an amazing jump on the start, and they are on 14 lap newer tires than the car in front of them. It shouldn't be long, I think, before Robert Cass gets up on that wheel and makes life difficult for this car in front of him, because I would think 14 lap newer tires would be good enough to make this pass pretty easily at some point.
Yeah, 100-degree track temp and 14 lap newer tires. I think he's really going to be pushing here to try to get by as quickly as possible.
I think 0.7 of a second the other way, though, might have something to say otherwise. So it's going to be a tough work then for Robert Cass to go out there and chase. Up then into Cunningham Corner go these top 4. There's not much elevation. It's very difficult to say up at any point around this track, but it is slightly up as you go into that section of track. Of course, this circuit, part of the old airfields around here at Sebring, used in the Second World War, and really a circuit that sits, Derek, very much like Silverstone in the terms of old airfields that get turned into racetracks, and world-renowned racetracks at that.
World-renowned indeed. Now, you know, you said there's not a lot of up and down here, and that's true, but what is up and down here is how bumpy this track is, Jake. If we could get an onboard of any of these cars and watch them get through some of these corners, just watch that camera shake, Jake. It's like being on like the bumpiest, flattest roller coaster of your life. It's just, oh my gosh, that looks like Chiropractor City right there.
Boing, 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 through the corner, especially on the inside of Sunset Bend. That's where you certainly note it as you go through, and you're getting all of that understanding of what the car is doing through the force feedback of the steering wheel, or whatever device they choose to sim race on, through the opening corner, get as close to the left-hand side as possible. And the 8th place Gabriel Roos now has to really pick up the mantle here and just try and make as much hay as the sun does shine over the course of racing. do want to look back at the 024 though for a moment, because this will be the AM category, which really does get a go-ahead. And Michael, when you look at Peter Houston, the way that he's been driving out there, it has been very much a case of staying calm through the work that they've done. It's been really for them a race between him, Patrick McDaniel, and Christopher Schmelier that they've done well, and they've really said, okay, you're going to get your first big block now, Peter. Now really settle in, because this is a crucial phase of the race when you've got your main rivals right behind you.
Yeah, this is actually the phase of the race that I like driving. I like it when some of the early chaos has gotten sorted out, and you really just get to race the people that you are, racing in class, kind of one-on-one here. You're not managing traffic yet. It's just, as I've said multiple times through this broadcast so far, it's really just put your head down, turn some laps, don't make a mistake. You don't have to be the absolute fastest of the two of you. You just need to make less mistakes than the guy behind you. It's not necessarily about winning right there as much as it is not screwing up.
Oh, so car 9, this will be Apex Missers, then Martin Zayaveld. They've been given a warning for not obeying race control instructions for holding speed on the restart. So when drivers then have a restart, Derek, they'll have a minimum and a maximum speed that they'll be rushing behind the pace car, or the quote pace car. And basically when when they go back to the green flag running that they have, the car has to hold a minimum and maximum top speed as we look at the BRT low-key machine, the 087, and this gaggle going through with the Precision Racing Esports blue car, which is a lap down, and then the Quality 063. So getting a bit busy down in the prototypes out there, the LMP2s, but really not holding minimum speed. It's just a warning right now. They'll be hoping there's no more cautions, and they'll be definitely keeping a closer eye on the speedometer.
Yeah, and race control, of course, really busy. I can tell you right now that the Composite Performance 12 has filed a protest on the restart officially, so race control will be looking at that. But yeah, race control gets busy this time of day. Those guys work very hard, Jake, to keep this event moving all day long and keep people happy. So shout out to the admins real quick. I think it's a thankless job sometimes, and the MTEC series is great at what they do.
Yeah, and this is what you love, live stewarding in an endurance race. It's what everyone clamors for every time you get through endurance racing. It's especially clamored for in the officials. We focus then on the BRT Loki machine. That's a wide line. Darian Roy gets well out of the way and just says, you know what, I'm a lap down. No, this is above my pay grade to race against those drivers. I'm just going to get well out of it. But it's the sort of thing that you look at here, Michael. We are right in Sebring season. We're just finished off March. We're into April, so you could say we're just outside of it. But the amount of races that are done in March around Sebring, you think drivers get a little bit tired of racing this track?
I'm sure some of them do. I was fortunate enough to only do 2 series here. I did not participate in the 12-hour, but I have talked to several other drivers that did, Lotus 79, Camel, IMSA, the Sebring 12-hour, did Porsche Cup here, did GT3 here, and I'm like, after all those laps, how are you still wrecking out of half your races? Come on, you gotta do better than that. But yeah, I'm sure some guys got tired of Sebring, but there are some specialists that absolutely love this track. I find it to be one of the more difficult ones on the service, but still always enjoy racing here. It offers some unique challenges as we see them heading up into Cunningham and Tower, which is my favorite section of the racetrack.
So I think that happens a lot on the service, Jake, where we seems like we hyper focus on a track. I mean, obviously in January it's Daytona. All the events that happen at Daytona, between the major series and iRacing Official and IMSA and GT3s, and that happens a lot, I think, where we kind of just don't want to touch a track again. So yeah, these guys are probably ready to move on from Sebring after this race, I would think.
Look, in January, everyone's tired of Daytona. In February, everyone's tired of Bathurst. In March, everyone's tired of Sebring. In April, everyone's tired of the Nürburgring. You got May that comes along as well. June, everyone's tired of that French track in the countryside that we can't really talk about. You get into that situation where there seems to be a huge endurance race every single month. And it becomes a case of, well, what's the next big challenge? What's the next big challenge? And this is what endurance racing is. It's sort of like a wild west because there are so many huge entities out there, Michael, that create great racing, great endurance racing, and it congregates itself out perfectly. Everyone seems to have a great endurance race at a certain time of day or a certain time of month, you know, unless you're the 24 hours of Spa and you have to move for the Formula One race. But still, it's that sort of understanding that every month it is a different track, it's a different challenge.
Yeah, Jake, I honestly like it. I think that it elevates everyone. You get everybody really, you know, churning out the laps, and it's nice to see all the different communities end up running laps at a certain track. And I think that it kind of boosts everyone up and brings up the level of competition across the board. So I know some guys get tired of repetitively beating on the same track, but I really think it lends itself well.
And before we move on, can we just give props to iRacing real quick? They're constantly on the official side evolving that endurance calendar. Of course, 2 new endurance events this year. 2 weeks from today, I think, is the Road America 500 making its return to iRacing with the Camo GT cars. And then this year, I think in November or October, is the Fuji 8 Hour this year. So props to iRacing for changing that calendar and keeping it fresh for the drivers involved.
Yeah, I'm personally very excited to see them bring the RA 500 back. I think it'll be neat to see how many people jump in on that and decide to tackle the challenges of the Audi gearbox and the excessive power through that 4-wheel drive system, and dealing with traffic with the Nissans and trying not to dive bomb too hard on those Audis into the corner entries. I think it'll be really entertaining to see a wide range of drivers take up that challenge.
Currently, we look at Gabriel Roos in 8th position. Those 2 cars in front are 3rd and 2nd. Dominic Durnenberg for Composite Performance, Martin Zayeveld then for Apex Missers. So number 9 holding station at this point in time, just running a little wide through the opening corner out on track. But this is where you start feeling that pressure for 2nd and for 3rd, and you really get an understanding of, okay, it's a race. It's not going to be a case of these drivers are going to go slinging shots down the inside, Derek, at every single chance, but it's just a constant, you know, I'm here, just, you know, let me know when you want to make a mistake.
Yeah, especially. And, you know, the 64 was sort of the biggest loser in that last 4-course yellow, Jake, because almost all the LMP2s pitted, but then there were 3 or 4 that did not. So they did not get their lap back like they were hoping for. So now they've got to keep up on this, and they've got to try to race it back the old-fashioned way. But look how close this is. This is what you got to love about MTEC and endurance racing as a whole. We're 5 hours into a race, and these 3 cars, although only 2 of them on the lead lap, are still right here battling lap by lap, corner by corner, just seconds apart from each other.
Inch by inch, yard by yard, they'll keep counting it off as they go around and head towards the Ulmann section of circuit, through this Le Mans brilliant section, Gien de Bienne, then the Le Mans chicane, and then in towards the Ulmann straight, and this long setup towards Sunset Bend. Now the 286, the BRT Heimdall car, has just been given a drive-through penalty for causing a collision. So from 4th position in their category, they're going to be taking a small trip, will the 286 Ferrari, for what happened off of the restart there, Michael, where they turned around. 1 car out there, of course, being that 212 of Franco Margarella.
Yeah, that's that unfortunate accordion we saw where they just tried to get that run out of Sunset and just barely tagged the back of that BMW as they slowed up for the rest of the field. Always a danger on restart. You always hear, you know, cautions breed cautions, but easy mistake to make where you just try to get that jump and make sure you get that run, and you're both looking forward and backward trying to make sure you've protected yourself from the rear, and you're trying to get a jump and get past a car or 2 on the restart, and unfortunately just timed it incorrectly. Reasonable penalty, but still hard to swallow sometimes.
So you know how we were saying earlier, for Composite Performance is 91 here, Derek, that 14 laps, fresher tyres, and coming off of a restart, they're going to be in a great position. Well, Talk Sim Sport, you get this for the last 3 laps that they've put together, as they just make a mistake coming out then of the Le Mans chicane, just the back end really stepping out, and that might actually be worth a replay look there for Simon Graf, just as he was going through. So this will be a little bit of life for them. But what I was saying is, before that mistake, 59.6, 59.7, 59.9, 2 minute point 1, 2 minute point 2. That McLaren was absolutely waltzing away. You're going to see it on the outside curb, exactly where it goes. Or actually, it was the inside curb drifting it through, able to gather that back up. But at least at that point, they'd consistently been 7-8 tenths of a second quicker than composite performance. We'll take another look. This is the driver's eye view. Now, how much wheel work's there? Oh, 1, 2. Got it. Save. What a great save. But before that point, it was a case for composite performance's number 91 there of sad Porsche noises.
You know, I have to admit, Jake, I'm really confused. I thought for sure that this 91 would have, and Robert Cass would have an easier time getting around Torque SimSport than they are. I thought that this tire difference and the fuel difference, I thought this would be a walk away, honestly. And I don't mean that to sound as negative as it does towards Robert Cass, but I'm not a betting guy, but I would have put money on this, I think. I don't know what, Michael, if you have different thoughts, but I'm really surprised.
I was with you that I thought that the 911 was really going to be able to challenge the McLaren there on the restart for a little while. However, you know, you got to look at it the other way, is that the McLaren had conditioned its tires. The tires were pretty even on temperatures, probably core and surface, and they had gotten to cool behind the safety car for a little while, and they had, 14 laps less fuel. So, I mean, for me, that's kind of an ideal scenario where you go, okay, I've gotten a chance to cool my tires down. I got to back off. I've gotten a chance to breathe, and now I'm on lighter fuel. Let me just try to stretch this gap. I mean, we may see it start to rubber band in the other direction towards the end of the stint, but for now, they've taken that little bit of advantage in fuel weight and those, you know, more equalized tires in terms of temperature, and really just use that to their advantage and stretch this lead out to 6 seconds now.
Well, and the word you use... Go ahead,
sorry, if I may. Michael, would you also say, though, with Robert Cass looking at the front of his machine, that the upturning there of the front splitter and the skirt that's there is certainly going to be causing them a few troubles aerodynamically under the car?
I'm going to have to take a look at that, Jake. I just haven't quite gotten to that view yet. Oh, yeah, they do just have just a little bit of front end damage there, and that'll certainly give them a little bit of push on entry, which is never what you want in a 911, and it's going to hurt them a little bit for top speed as well.
This is damage they picked up at the 30-minute mark, by the way. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
Well, it's a long road they've got to go through. The good news for them, Derek, is that it wouldn't so much affect the engine, but more rather affect the boot space.
Yeah, that is the good news. It's not going to affect the engine, but the key word that Michael used a second ago that I think is important, Jake, is stint. And what I mean by that is that naturally here, I would think within 3 to 4 laps, they're going to assume the lead because Torque SimSport is going to have to pit way sooner than all the rest of these GT3 cars. So even if you are Robert Cass and you think you're having a hard time, that's okay. Just be patient, relax. You're going to pass them naturally because they're going to run out of gas here soon.
Yeah, they are. So you've got the abilities to go through, make something happen. We do have 2 GTs in the pits right now. The M-Plow Eisenblut machine is down on the lane. So too is Not Recommended Motorsport, which their Lamborghini will just about leave then at 2 hours, 55 minutes and 30 seconds out there. And they will look to get themselves back out and going. We'll look a little bit further forward into the field. This is your race leader overall right now. This is Nathan Zhu, who has pulled out a 1.8 second margin, now up to a 2.1 second margin up now at the front of the field. And 2 seconds for them is good. They're starting to hit a little bit of traffic, so they're able right now to just push their way around and get themselves through. What I will note as well is that with the amount of retirees we've seen so far, traffic here, Michael, a little bit less of an issue.
Yeah, Jake, you know, that caution bunched the field up, and thankfully that combined with the pace of some of these cars has given a little bit of reprieve from traffic as we see that move into turn 1, which now there's another one going to get swarmed into 3 here. I guess we both spoke a little too soon with a little reprieve from traffic, but yeah, it's nice when classes work together, and that's a lot of what, you know, I'm going to preach to the choir here, but that's a lot of what multi-class racing requires is give and take from both classes in order to not hold either one up and make sure it's as clean as possible.
Well, Peter Houston now will have his turn on what might be a pretty shell-shocked Robert Cast after turn 1. And we'll have the much easier task of going around the outside here through the Fangio S's and running off and away. They've built the gap over Quality Control Racing 074. That gap now stands at around 4 seconds. And Terracciano doesn't seem to have, at least at this stage of the race here, the same turn of cadence. Maybe they've been a little bit unlucky over a couple of laps because their last lap there, Derek, was pretty even in terms of pace.
Yeah, it has been pretty even in terms of pace. You are correct here. You're watching on board here with that Quality Racing car here. So yeah, pace is important here. You know, attrition you sort of hit on, which is that there's been some attrition. I think some of us may be surprised there wasn't more attrition by this point. The track is still pretty full. You have to work pretty hard to find yourself alone on the track right now. But yeah, there's a good pass here. There's a good race going on here.
There is. So Terracciano knows that he's going to have to pull the finger out and get close and worry about Danny Fredericks, his teammate, who will be going through. Now, on we go with Dominic Durnenberg here in 3rd position, still holding the Apex Misses team, number 9, within a second. But you're seeing the wheel work that's going through, and probably the most classic of wheels that you get with the Dallara P217 there, Michael, and with a big kick of oversteer to boot, the Cosworth steering wheel.
Yeah, I'm a big motorsport electronics nerd. I love the Cosworth CCW2s, the CCW3s that are in the new LMDHs with the lighted buttons and the backlit rotaries is just super cool to me. But, you know, this Cosworth wheel is a classic. It's been a mainstay in motorsport for over 10 years now. You see it in IndyCar, you see it in LMP2s, and just what a cool piece of electronics kit in these cars.
And it just goes to show you as well, Michael, the evolution of what Cosworth is and what Cosworth means in terms of motorsports lineage, because of course the Ford Cosworth DFV is probably the greatest engine that's ever been created, with maybe the one exception being the intakes used on the 95 Toyota Corolla in the World Rally Championship. But the Ford DFV might just be the greatest combination ever, and the fact that, you know, Cosworth, although it's lost its formula lineage, still finds lineage when it comes to various different series around the world, and effectively branches out as one of the most recognizable names. You pretty much know Cosworth is a brand of pretty strong integrity when you get yourself into racing like this. This is going to be a little bit dicey though, as trying to navigate around the M-Plower Eisenblut machine, they just about managed to find the way through on the Audi there, and a penalty appeal accepted then for car 286, which was BRT Heimdall, and it means that the penalty, if there is any, will be moved to a post-race penalty, Michael.
Interesting, an interesting development. Certainly will make the driver in the car feel a lot better. You know, once again, you just get to focus on driving now and you don't have to worry about that penalty. That's a relief off your shoulders when you're in that driver's seat and you just kind of sigh and try to spot your next braking point and make sure you coach yourself through the corner and just kind of get on with your job now, rather than worrying about, hey, I got to take a drive-through or a stop and go.
Speaking of which, in came the McLaren of Simon Graf, Talk Simsport by Wagner Schweiz Technik, are down in the lane. They're getting their stop. They've switched over to Andre Wolf. And Derek, we don't often see McLarens out there in endurance, at least in iRacing, because there is such a wide array of machinery that drivers tend to like a little bit more. But seeing that McLaren over the course of this season is very much a throwback. And it's one thing that I think has been pretty cool with what iRacing's done, is that they've taken machinery like this and they've blended it fantastically with what is out there and more current.
Yeah, the McLaren is rare to see, because I think that for a lot of drivers, it's maybe the most difficult of the current GT3s to handle. I think Michael hit on it earlier about, you know, you got to be very gentle with it. You got to, you know, make sure you get your foot gently on the pedal. So we don't see them a lot across the iRacing service as far as endurance events are concerned, either in leagues or official races. But when you do see them and someone knows how to drive them, they always seem to be really darn fast, Jake. It's cool to see when they come out. Of course, it's not even a car that's currently used in IMSA, I don't believe, in real life. So it's fun to see it here in iRacing and see it out leading a race.
I know I was at Snetterson last year and I saw an absolutely beautiful stacked I believe lorry of about 4 GT4 McLarens, which look absolutely sensational to see up and down the order. There were a couple of 720s that were there as well, which was a true sight to behold. So you absolutely know that, especially when it comes to the European continent, they're there. American continent, maybe not so much that you find McLaren, maybe not quite their market that they're trying to target at this point. But with the Torque Sim Sport pit stop, it does mean that Composite Performance now take control of what they are hoping for. But it is worth noting that their gap right now with Robert Cast is about 12.3 seconds over the leading GT Pro-Am of Twin Turn Sim Racing. So those two Porsches now looking to try and really work forward. And what is it, Michael, about the Porsche that has been such a good go-to car over the last 6 months or so within iRacing?
It's seen a fairly favorable balance of performance across all series. You know, you combine that with the fact that it sounds great, it looks great, and you know, obviously important things for a race car, and it's not bad to drive. You really can get it slowed down into a corner and drive it like a traditional 911, where, you know, you get it slow in and fast out, and it's got great traction on corner exit on pretty much all setups, whether we're talking about the iRacing baselines or something from one of the other setup houses. But it really is a fairly controllable car at most tracks. It's got decent balance, so you know that has lended itself to a decent bit of participation.
It has. Dominic Dornenberg then for Composite Performance, number 13, through turn 5, and looking to try and drive with precision over towards turn 6, the Gurney bend, and over to that hotel hairpin. They've been keeping the apex missers pretty much in check with the way that they've wanted to go about their racing. But the one thing that I have been just keeping a small eye on is where that Satellite Racing red car is. I believe that it has come down in and made a stop about 2 laps ago. So they're on a different strategy right now compared to the others, getting themselves some fresh air to go and attack. But you'd say these drivers right now are going to be looking to try and run that tank dry, see how far they can go. And often you find, Derek, when it comes to racing, is that the drivers who are the quickest often just so happen to be the ones who can save fuel really well.
It does. You hope you have one of those in your team, at least. There are differences, and I've known a couple of fast drivers who can't save fuel, but you hope you can find one of those and recruit them to a team, because they are valuable when you have them here. You talked about Satellite Racing Red making a pit stop, Jake. That should mean that our top 3 LMP2 cars, pardon me, I'm thinking ahead for iRacing, should be coming down pit road pretty soon as well.
I just want to touch on that real quick. Is in terms of fuel saving, we saw that Torque Sim Sport car stay out, and Graf stayed in it for that extra 13 laps through the end of that stint, and they've since swapped to Andre Wolf, and by my calculations, which are pretty rough, I'll admit, you know, commentators and math, not the best combination, but my guesstimate here is that it's a little over 3 stops left till the end for them, so like maybe 3.25. So while they are off strategy a little bit here, all they need is either A, caution to come out, or B, for them to fuel save just a little bit over all 3 stints, and they're going to be right in line here for not needing an extra stop. So I think this strategy, while it might be a little bit of a gamble, I think it might work out really nicely for them.
But to me, the difference isn't that extra, it isn't the quarter of a stop or saving any fuel for the stop, Michael. It's going to be about how long is that last stop. I think that's the difference in the strategies.
Sure. No, that makes sense.
23 seconds on the tracks to change tyres for Dominic Dornenberg, and then on top of that you've got yourself the fuel that's going through. That might be worth a talking point right towards the very end. Drivers who will need a splash and dash, about a half a tank of fuel, probably aren't going to be looking at changing those tyres just because of how much time they will lose on a tyre change here, Derek.
Yeah, there's different ways to approach it, Jake. One is to run the car dry and get the splash and dash and just take no tires, as you said. Some teams might want to split the middle. and see if they can put tires on. There's a few different ways to approach it. As we've hinted at, we're not guaranteed another yellow in this race. We could go green the rest of the way here, so we'll have to wait and see what happens. Different strategies can sometimes be the thing that helps you win a race.
Different strategies could certainly help. Here is Mark Johnson for the CMSRacing.com endurance team, and they'll be certainly hoping for a really good run out there as they look to push as much as they possibly can and jump themselves up further through the field. The 8th position overall at this stage. Not Recommended Motorsport is in front of them, but in comes the leaders. Then in prototypes, Blue Chew Black and Apex Missers both decide to come in, both decide to keep with the driver lineups that they have. No real surprises there between them, but you would say for Blue Chew Black, they are in a position of more loss out there. They have had Nathan Zhu in for a good couple stints now, and they've had Nate Grzelski over the course of their run. It's just been those two transferring over and over again. It will be a little bit more taxing than the likes of, or will be just as taxing, I should say, as the Apex Missers, who have also gone here, Michael, to a 2-team tandem. Now, what's the difference for you when you're looking to try and build up an endurance team? Do you look at a race like this and it's a 2-team tandem and you're trying to get as much as you can? Or are you looking at it, I want 3 members, I want 4 members. Yes, the drivers will have to do less. Yes, there might be more variance in terms of how we have to set up the car. But no, I don't think it's a bad decision because it means that drivers get less tired and mistakes are less likely.
For me, I would always rather have the extra driver. For an 8 or 12-hour race, I'm looking at 3 people. For a 24-hour race, I would prefer to have 4 or 5. For me, I agree with you. It's the same, or I'm sorry, it's definitely a fatigue issue. You know, sim racing isn't as fatiguing as being in a real car. And yes, there's something to be said for getting into the zone and, you know, just cranking out laps that are reliable because you've been in the seat and you're warmed up. But with sim racing, being able to take breaks, get food, get water, stretch, warm up in a different session, I think having that extra driver in the car is certainly useful and gives you a more reliable chance at a higher finish.
Now, we have noted that there was one car off of our screens and run into troubles. That was the 079 Quality Control Racing prototype out there. There were 3 of them in the field. They are down to 2. And the 079, if it had ideas of coming back out onto circuit, it now can't, Derek, because they have officially been disqualified for competitor conduct.
Yeah, that's hard to see when that stuff happens, but that car number's come up a couple times today, Jake. It's not the first time we've heard about it. So that's unfortunate to see, you know, for that team. And, you know, they're a team who has, you know, had multiple entries, you know, lots of respect in the community at times, but that's never a penalty you want to get around here. That's a penalty that sticks with you to people, remember.
It certainly is, and not what that team is hoping for. Now, we're focusing on Gabriel Roos. Now, Satellite here are exactly a lap behind the Blue Chew Black, and they will need to get through, and they've done really well, I thought, with that undercut, Michael. They're on a different strategy, they're on a different call at this point in time, and it's working for them because they do have pace, and they are going to get closer. They might need a bit of help, or they might need to push, and this is where you say 2 hours, 40 minutes to go. It's a long time. A lap around here in these prototypes is 1 minute and 50 seconds. So you're looking to try and chase down what is 110 seconds over more than 2.5 hours. You're looking roughly at maybe chasing down 0.2 of a second, 0.3 of a second every lap. That's good enough to get you home.
Yeah, that's still a big margin, especially when that the front of that number 9 is looking, or number 64, excuse me, is looking like it spent a little too much time, a little too close to one of the Sebring campfires from the party group. It's going to be a really, really, really hard margin to pull in, but they've got a fast group of drivers, and if they get a little bit of luck, it's not impossible.
Warning again has come through for car number 9 in the Apex Missers. We focus on Elias Rahman in the BRT Heimdall car. Derek, this is for warning for too late of a pass attempt. Now, drivers are looking at, okay, well, how much run do you give? That was probably for the scary buzzing of the tower through turn 1, where they took the smallest gap imaginable through the opening corner.
Yeah, it probably was. And now you have to think the 9 car is basically, Jake, on double secret probation.
The 9 car, I would say, is less on probation and is more living for thrills and spills with that sort of line through turn 1.
They picked up like a mowing contract and farm sim right there on that corner. No, but I was going to say, though, like they've now received 2 warnings, one for the start and then another one since then for that late pass. So you have to think that anything they do here is going to be under a magnifying glass per race control moving forward.
That reminds me, Michael, of Bruno Senna, of all people, who once upon a time won a race in Australia in a Formula 3 car in a John Deere-sponsored car.
You know, I love to think that I can hang with you when it comes to some race trivia, but when we're talking about F3 in Australia, I am definitely out in the woods on this one.
Oh, I'm normally out in the woods on trivia pretty much full stop. I just found that on my timeline once upon a time, and there's just sort of sticks. It's the actually, we do have a spinner. It's James Whitehouse, Century Sim Esports, gone around at Gendebien corner. So that's not ideal for the yellow Ferrari, which is out there and piloting around. And that would have been trying to get it turned into the corner. And it's one of those incidents where you don't expect it as a driver, just the back lazily looping around here, Michael, and just talk us through how easy this sort of incident is to do.
It's really, really easy to get deep into that corner. It's kind of deceptively fast, but you have to brake more than you feel like you should. I know that sounds weird saying it's deceptively fast, but you have to brake more. It's one of those corners where it's slightly off camber, and so it just kind of washes away from you. And if you come in on the brakes just a little bit too much and just trail into the corner the way that Ferrari did, the rear end will start to step out on you. That was a good catch, and it was a good job getting out of the way before the LMPs got there, but super easy to do through there, especially, you know, 6 hours, 5 hours into an endurance race with a lot of marbles and trying to carry some speed.
I should say I have shared a commentary box with James Whitehouse, and he's proving for commentators everywhere that no, I won't go even as far as that. Still, though, he's out there and has just seen go through Martin Zierveld, who there for Apex Misses goes through and is still trying to chase down Dominic Durnenberg. So they've really lost out then of the Apex Misses. They've fallen back to 3rd in category, but you have to remember that they are on split strategy straight down the middle, and it's almost like here, Derek, and this is really interesting, Pro and Am, or Pro and Pro-Am, are on 2 completely different strategies in this race.
Yeah, it is very interesting to see that kind of happen right here, where we're seeing that Pro and Pro-Am on that side for the LMP2s be so different. It's unintentional, obviously, but always fun to see those little subplots poke out whenever they do.
Certainly is. Flying through goes Zierveld, and onto the Ullman Straight on what will be their 162nd revolution of the circuit, moving towards their 163rd, moving on through. Blue Tube Blue right now have control of their destiny championship-wise here, Michael, as we head towards 2.5 hours left to go worth of racing action, but they only find themselves with a 5-second margin at this moment in time. So Peter Houston, who's done a really good job to build that 5-second margin, knows he can't rest on his laurels just yet.
Nope, and you know, even disregarding the championship implications, when you just say, look, right now I'm in the lead of this race and I got to get these laps done, you know, you might not even be thinking about the championship. For me, championship implications never enter my mind when I'm in the car. It's always, what position am I in right now, and am I in first? Great, let's not lose any positions. Am I in 4th? Great, let's try to get up into the podium spots. So for me, it's always always tough to hear championship implications when I get out of the car and go, oh, hey, yeah, maybe I should have done better. But when you're in the lead, you don't have to worry about that.
So here's the pit stop coming out the final section. They've got to slow it down to about 71 kilometers an hour along this stretch. So they really know they've got to be there. Now, braking property, Derek, let's talk about that. The difference between braking for a pit on asphalt comparing to braking for the pits on concrete. Now, that's where you start seeing difference, and you have to brake slightly earlier on the concrete.
You do have to brake slightly different on the concrete. You know, one of the skills I think often gets overlooked in sim racing and endurance racing and whatnot, Jake, is braking for pit road. I think a lot of us focus more on our on track, our corners and sunset and the tower and all these other corners. And I think a lot of people forget to figure out how hard can I push my entrance to pit road. And there's a lot of time to be gained there.
There is a whole heap of time to be gained. So I think that right now at this stage, with all of these drivers coming in, they know they've got to really work. Speaking of really having to work, Quality's 074 changed drivers out there, so it'll be Ticehurst who will be out then in the car for them, taking over for Terracciano. And Terracciano actually has set their fastest lap of the race at a 49.1 just before the pit stop window. So Peter Houston, it just goes to show how quick he's going. If the car behind, the Quality car behind here right now, Derek, is putting its fastest laps of the race in at this stage of the race.
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons why you could be putting in fast laps. It could just be getting comfortable in the car. The other reason to keep in mind, Jake, is we are now at about 4:40 p.m. sim time. The track temp has dropped greatly from where we were maybe an hour or less than an hour ago. We're down to 94 degrees Celsius on that track temp. I don't have the Celsius memorized
34.
for that. Thank you. But yeah, so that's a great time here to put down. I think we'll try to see more fast laps probably after this next pit stop here. I don't think we're going to get to full darkness before this race is over, but the sun will begin to set here, Jake. And these teams are hoping this race doesn't become their American nightmare, if you will.
They certainly will hope not, and I would say American nightmares are more for Sundays rather than they are Saturdays at this moment in time. But we do have one driver then looking to join with us, and that will be Ayrton Williams, who will jump in along with us for the ride for a moment. Ayrton, just looking at what Satellite are looking to try and get out at this point in time. One lap down, trying to really chase to jump up forward in terms of a race like this. Of course, the blue car is out, but you've still got the red car. How crucial is it right now that you find yourself a way to get back up to car number 14, get by?
Pretty crucial for the championship, of course, because we're only 3 points down, and that's not a very big gap. But yeah, it's crucial. But we're kind of there or thereabouts on pace, and we're not streaking off. So even if we did, the worry still is that if we do go for a pass and get another penalty, well then that's our race over. Even if we go for the pass, so yeah, that's kind of in the back of our mind. We're kind of using the pit stops like we did to get past the 13. We just pitted early and got past him. But yeah, at this current moment, it's not looking too good, but we're not going to give up. We're going to keep going because we can always have disconnects and, crashes and stuff. So there's always a chance.
When it comes to a ruling like that, in terms of being as quick as the leaders and knowing that you've got a car that's as quick as the leaders and you're trying to unlap yourself, does it put you in a much more difficult position knowing that you're going to have to try and show significant pace advantage to unlap yourself compared to, oh, I've got a little bit of pace, I can match pace and gain with some strategy, but doing so and putting yourself in a place where you can't quite get ahead and away is going to put you in a penalty. Does that sort of pigeonhole you in terms of what you're trying to do with strategy?
Well, yeah, and that's the problem, because the car, even if we get in front, for example, we're 6Ks down in draft, then without damage being on our own, we're 6Ks down in draft. So even if we get in front, but if we have to be almost 2 seconds a lap quick, so we can pull a gap and get out of draft straight away, but we're not. We're not that quick, unfortunately. So, it puts us in the position where we're kind of trying to have to use the pit stops to our advantage, but then we're also bringing back our fuel margin by doing that, because we're obviously pitting earlier than everyone else to try to do that. So it's a hard one, but we'll keep at it. We'll see where the race takes us, because there's still 2.5 hours to go. I haven't had my stints either. I'm in next. So we'll see where it goes from here, but we're hopeful. We're hopeful that we can, you know, possibly, maybe when Nate gets in, maybe I can be quicker and I can get past. But, you know, at this current moment, we're kind of just trucking along, just not giving up. We can't give up until the end of the race.
No, that's the right mentality to have. And over the course of the season, that Satellite Racing Red number 64 has proven over one lap pace that it has been a speed demon and almost nigh on impossible to stop. When you look back at how you've prepared for all of these races this season, as your boy Gabriel there is just making the pass then forward against Elias Roman of the BRT Heimdall Ferrari. Do you think, Ayrton, that the way that you've gone about this season, that the pace has certainly been there up to challenge, and that the podiums that you found, maybe there have been some wins left on the table, but from an overall team perspective, you can't really fault the drivers in terms of what they've been able to perform with on pace? No, pace hasn't been the issue. We've been pretty close or quicker, much quicker most of the races. But we've all had small mistakes or one big mistake in a race, and it's cost us. Le Mans, for example, we got the damage fixed. We had damage early on from the bump drafting from Blue. We got that fixed, and my first lap out of the pits, I spun it at the chicane and hit the rear on the tyre barrier on the outside of the chicane, and that gave us like 2 minutes again, and we were back in the same position before we had damage. So yeah, it's just been small mistakes that have cost us. And even when we've had damage, we've been on pace. So without the damage, who knows? But, you know, endurance racing is endurance racing. Small mistakes or big mistakes do happen. And unfortunately, we've just had a couple too many throughout the season. But pace has been there, and that's a good sign. And that's what we want. The main thing is, you know, it's great to be consistent. But if we're consistent being 10th every race, you know, it's not a huge plus. But if we're able to get wins, and I think we've been on pole every race this year, potentially, I think. I'm not 100% on that. But like, to know that we have the one lap pace and we have the race pace. We've had the race pace. It's just been, we've ended up with damage throughout the race, and it's just slowed us down. Like Spa, for example, we were really good at Spa, but every other race has kind of been topsy-turvy, unfortunately. So it's all about trying to get back to that scenario. Well, Ayrton Williams joining us there, giving us a huge amount of insight then into what's been going on over at car number 64's garage, and jumping in for the stints next. We totally hope that you have a good run when it comes to your stints coming up next.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Ayrton Williams there joining us over from Satellite Racing Red. 2 hours, 26 minutes and 39 seconds remaining then in your MTEC finale here from the Sebring International Raceway. It is still all about who can find themselves a result come the end of this race. We're going to step aside for just one moment with the Global SimRacing Channel. Back with more after this. scary moments for the prototypes out there. It looked like they were having to deal with a bit of lap traffic. It's allowed the Apex Mist to jump back into third position over Blue Chew Blue. Peter Houston looking to try and challenge for place, but it was a different machine entirely that found themselves getting out of the way. It was Nicholas Schwartz in the Precision Racing Esports Black 217 that did the old abandon, Michael, stage left. No chance at all they were going to take the corners. We'll take a look on the GSRC replay.
Yeah, a little wiggle there on entry and then a really shallow line, and with the prototype just bearing down on him, he just said nope and opened the wheel up and took the off track. Certainly discretion is the better part of valor right there.
I believe in terms of looking for an Apex, there was one somewhere, not quite sure where, but this is what you got behind you, absolutely hounding you. No, not gonna do, no.
Yeah, that's a reasonable bailout right there. That's hit the ejection switch in your shifter and just call it a day.
Pretty much. You live to fight another day, and that's the key. Survival of the fittest first. On the breakthrough turn 3 goes Peter Houston, putting a lap on the Goen Racing Ruby car. Nicholas Goen behind the wheel then, and looking to try and make some good progress. The, I believe, Goen brothers it is, Derek, of course, Nicholas and Josh, both looking to try and put in some good times. And Nicholas has the fastest time of the two brothers on a 2:09 at the moment, set on lap 151 of their race.
Yeah, that's a good time to set here, as we're seeing that data here on your screen, or some of it at least. But yeah, it's always fun. I couldn't imagine the fun it would be to race with your brother, Jake. That must be kind of cool. You'd think you guys would have that communication system built down to fewer words and almost knowing what the other's thinking if you've been, brothers that long. That would be a fun event, I think.
It's also the sort of thing you'd look at maybe, Michael, and if you had an argument with your brother out there on circuit and, you wrecked the car or something to that ilk, or you got yourself caught up in something, all you got to do is go to the other room and have an argument instead of having to have a firefight over in radio communications.
Yeah, it might be one of those cases, though, where you go for a walk instead.
Yeah, you take 5, 10, 15, depending on the repair that might be. But
taking a little bit of air actually means taking a little bit of air at that point.
That'd be a much different protest system.
Oh, yeah, no, they have that as well. And certainly has been a little quiet on that front. Everyone's just settled down into rhythm here with 2 hours and 15 minutes remaining then in this race. In comes Satellite Red to make their stop. Now, this is a big stop for them because, once again, they're going to be looking in the 64 to go through and get what they want. As expected, it will be Ayrton Williams who will get behind the machinery for them, Derek. And this is a big stint for them. How does a new driver come to understand what a car is doing?
A lot of it, we were kind of joking a second ago about communication, Jake, but a lot of it is about communication with your team. It's about the driver who's pitting, talking about, hey, the car felt great in the last 2 hours, whatever, we're a little loose at sunset, or the car's tight at tower, or, hey, during my stint, I had to move the brake bias this way. A lot of it is about communication, but also about that driver getting out there and learning what it's like. And then hopefully that driver's also done some practice ahead of this race at this time, so they should have an idea of what the track's going to feel like and whatnot. There's a lot of preparation that goes into it, but a lot of communication amongst team members that makes a team successful.
On board with the Precision Racing Esports Blue outfit, the number 2 team overall coming into today, 6th in the championship overall. But when you consider today, the 3rd in the championship is out, 4th in the championship is out, and Michael, 5th in the championship aren't here racing. Ooh. That was very nearly 6th in the championship out.
that was a huge slide. I'm not sure if that was just a little bit of a dirt drop or got on the power a little too much, followed it up with a dirt drop, but I don't think Formula Drift has done a round at Sebring before, but that was a pretty good example. So we're going to see the approach here down into the hairpin, gets on the brakes nice and late, gets it turned in, doesn't lock up on the downshifts, and just runs it out a little bit wide just onto the edge of the curb in the dust there, but powers out of it nicely. That was a really nice save and didn't lose too much time from it.
nobody's told Darian that he's in Sebring, not Sendai. That is the quality control 063 that has gone around at Gendebien corner and has backed it into the wall. So one of the two quality cars, which has been looking for a result here today, might, and I say might, going around then the final corner, be in a bit of trouble. So this is how quickly it goes wrong. Trying to get past the lap traffic is going to manage it, but on the brakes, slightly too deep, Derek gets up over the curve. It's a beveled curve as well, and just loses all the grip, and that's a hefty hit into those tires.
It is a hefty hit. Here's my only positive I can find from that, Jake. It's completely almost on the side of that car. That might just be some body damage and suspension damage. They might have avoided any major engine damage by getting it on the side of that car.
They might have, but it might be a long stop. You could see the damaging, especially to the left rear of that car from a driver's perspective. You can see it right there. That's where most of the damage is on that machine. And it's the sort of thing where you look for the nuances that you can sort of get a little bit of help with in iRacing. Michael, I'd love to see at some point in time in iRacing's life cycle, someone come out with a nice stick of gaffer tape to say, you know what, that car is fixed, it's got the seal of approval, you can go out and race again.
Yeah, I know people kind of get on iRacing a little bit for some of the damage modeling, and there's always room to improve. But yes, I would love to see some additions to the animated pit crews, have them come out and, either replace panels or just tape the ever-living out of the rear of an LMP car or the front of a GT3 car. I think some additions there would look really neat for the sim, especially for us broadcasters. Unfortunately, the 63 car does have a meatball, so I think we're going to be in for a long section of required repairs here, judging by the speed of that hit.
I just want that one guy who comes out and climbs up on the car and washes the windshield while you're inside the car. That's what I want.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, that would be fantastic. Let's talk GT lead, though, for a moment, Derek. Andre Wolf, currently in the Talk SimSport by Wagner Schweißtechnik car, is back in front at this point. But that lead gap, I would say, is a full run between Cunningham Corner and Tower Corner. So that's a good 10 seconds. Composite have gone with a driver change as well. They've got Ross Booth behind the wheel, who is probably one of the most dependable hands you can find out there, Derek, when it comes to US sim racing in GT.
Yeah, Ross is an incredible hand to have. He's well known across different leagues, including Autobahn. And I think between him and Robert, he's a little bit faster today in this car. But I find this interesting because this basically is, remember, this is the pit cycle happening back and forth between them and Torque as far as who's leading this race. It's been so long since our last yellow that now Composite had to pit, and that's put Torque back in lead here by 14 seconds. And they're going to continue to swap this throughout the day. The question will be, can Ross Booth and Robert close that gap in between the cycles, or are they just going to continue to have to just, play back and forth the rest of the day?
Yeah, and the back and forth is going to be a really interesting one. And it'll only be in the final stages that we'll get a true indication, Michael, on whose strategy has got themselves in the best position. So you look at how many laps that drivers are able to do on a stint. Robert Cast coming in at the end of lap 155 also had himself a long go on that stint, going from lap or the caution period, which was lap 129, lap 130, over towards lap 155. So it was around 25 laps on that stint, which will say, okay, well, 25 laps at 2 minutes, that's about 50 minutes. You look at where they are right now, they're probably going to need a half a minute stop. I would maybe put, at this moment in time, the Wagner Schweißtechnik Talk SimSport machine and that McLaren ahead, not just on pace, but on strategy as well.
Yeah, they're looking like they're in a nice spot here. You know, it's going to be 2-ish stops and change for everyone, depending on, as we said, the Torque Sim Sport's a little bit out of sequence here. But they, as we kind of touched on earlier, they might end up in a scenario here where they get away with, you know, no splash and dash at the end, and they do a full stop with tires and then have to just drive back up through the field, which would be a nice place to be if everybody else still has to splash. You might end up with track position and just having to defend the last few laps.
Track position is going to be very, very vital out there. Those final laps are key. Now, let's talk new scan when it comes to this Sebring circuit. Of course, here, Michael, it's a track which has evolved over the years, and one of the big keys of this circuit, which has evolved over the years, is now the final corner Sunset Bend. Not necessarily the inside of the corner, but the exit, the fact that the small strip of grass that was there is now gone, and you've got a huge bump there on the outside, which makes the track go from what was a very, very committed final corner to an even more committed final corner. And it's not often I say this, but taking away a small patch of grass has actually made the track more difficult through this final corner.
You know, Jake, it has and it hasn't. I want to just touch real quick here. Just a slight correction. It isn't a new scan. It's a graphical update with an update to that final corner Sunset's exit. The scan is still the same. They've just kind of done some incremental upgrades to the track. But yes, that strip of concrete on the outside, I think it makes it easier on most laps where you don't have to worry about tracking out and touching that little strip of grass and spinning yourself into the tires on pit entry. But that bump definitely can unsettle the chassis, and you need to get to the point where you actually track out just a little bit earlier. It allows you to take a little bit of an earlier apex through Sunset and make sure you've got your wheels straight when you get to that bump, because it's very easy if you have the wheel turned and you're full throttle coming out of Sunset to hit that bump and have it unsettle the chassis, which feels pretty similar to when the strip of grass was out there and you came out and touched the grass with your loaded wheels and tried to kill yourself. So it's a different challenge, but we're seeing some dicing here in the GT. Oh, and a little bit of contact.
That's a lot of bit of contact. And Nicholas Gowan finds the tyres then all the way over at this section of track, because we do have a car in the pits. So that then for the Gowan Racing Ruby team, which was 6th overall in all of the GTs, was doing pretty well. This is what happens when you go through. Was lap traffic tried to go through. There's the flash of the light saying, come on, please get out of my way. And that is... at that point here, Derek, are you looking at that as going, maybe we should have been out of the way, maybe we should have been letting them go through if they had to turn a pace more?
I look at it as a bit of both, honestly. Like, there's a thing that I talk to drivers about on our team, which is what's more important sometimes, being right or having a race car. And I think that in this case, you could argue that both people were, that the composite performance machine was right, that they should have moved out of the way. But at the same time, if you'd have backed up another corner or two and made the pass cleanly and not had any extra damage on the car, what's more important, winning the argument or having a clean race car?
Very well put together there, and I would say having a clean race car every single day of the year is what's going to get it done. Fastest lap, though, of the race from Nathan Zhu, 1:48.128. And that then, in terms of a time, is going to be a huge hammer blow to any hopes that Satellite Racing Red have. They're currently running 1:51s out there on circuit, so the difference then is 3 seconds a lap. And that then, for the number 14, the laps advantage right now, Michael, is pretty much putting a cement foundation in. At some point, they will stick their victory flag in that said cement, and then at some point, hopefully by the end of the race, the cement would have solidified, and there will be no taking out the flag that they have won this race and championship.
Yeah, Satellite Racing is going to be hoping that somebody comes over and just kicks that cement flag into the water off the end of the dock and it sinks. But with the pace they have right now at the front, as we see them run really wide into the dirt, I don't think that's likely to happen. It's going to take a bit of a miracle here for Satellite Racing to get back, as we heard them say in their interview with us earlier. But you know, props to trying to put the laps down and try to make up that time.
Yeah, so they've had a lot of work to try and pull that time back, and Ayrton Williams here, I think, is taking a very cautious approach here with likes of Ross Booth just in front through turns 3, 4, and in through turn number 5 out on circuit, trying to maximize the exit out there overall. So Williams able to just run around the outside. Now, Derek, when it comes to where these cars are very similar and different, this is where you get a good understanding. Where they're very similar is in the low speed. Mechanical grip is fairly similar. Where they're different is when they get the high-end grip, because you've got more of the aerodynamics there on the LMP2s out on circuit. So as such, they can carry more speed through the corners.
They do carry more speed throughout the corners. That is very true. And I think the other place you find the difference, honestly, is straight line speed between the two cars. You can almost debate, hey, I could keep up with a GT3 or LMP2, vice versa, in a corner. But, coming down the long straights here, that's when they'll pass you pretty easily. Yeah, these are very different cars, and I'm excited to see what happens, across iRacing, or if MTEC decides to adopt the LMP3s when they come out.
Ah, yes, the dentist class. Everyone would like to see that, I do believe, and except those who are at Sebring this year, where once again the LMP3s were a little bit of a menace out there for a couple of other classes out then overall. Grzelski back in the Blue Tube Black machine, out and away with the race lead, or what will be the race lead when they regain it, because we are on alternative strategies out there between Pro and Pro-Am classes, which is probably the most interesting place we've been so far. Peter Houston still behind the wheel then, Michael, for Blue Tube Blue, but it's a 10-second lead that they have over the Quality Control 074, and Andy Ticehurst has been matching the times over the last couple of laps.
Yeah, the last couple of laps have been pretty close. If you stretch it out a little bit further to looking at the last 10, the average on that Blue Tube car is, I don't know, about half a second faster. So I think there's been a little bit of traffic at play there that's maybe changed the gap just a little bit, but very similar pace for the most part.
Similar pace. You can see, though, differences. It was 1.6 seconds, and then 0.2, 9/10 then with Houston's 48.9, but the last 2 laps have been good. They're just about a half a tenth lost over the last 2 laps. That's what you call good going. Good job to wrestle back a little bit of control over the course of what they've won, and not bad from the Quality Control car out there at the moment in class. Andy Ticehurst, of course, will take a look from the driver's eyes perspective in towards this opening corner. This is where Derek Watson and Michael Turk will bring themselves away from the coverage. They've done a fantastic stint to go through. To bring us through, though, the final 2 hours worth of commentary will be myself, Justin Prince, and Joey Atterbury. Joey, I'm going to come to you first here as we tick over here in towards 2 hours. Of course, Brian Bauer's staying, so too's Dougie Beard's cameras. We love those. But Joey, in terms of bringing into the final 2 hours, this is your go-home stint. This is your chance to say, right, whoever's got this anchor leg, first job is first. Bring the car home.
Yeah, bring the car home. You got to keep it clean out there still. Anything can happen at Sebring. 2 hours is a long time around this bumpy racetrack, but you've knocked out the majority of the race now. You can kind of see the sunset out there on the horizon, if you will, on the race, and it's time to kind of turn up the wick in the last hour because things will heat up.
I've just noticed, Justin, coming into the pit, Andre Wolf has had a half spin at Sunset Bend. Did have a pretty sizable lead over Ross Booth of an entire run from Tower over towards the Le Mans chicane. But for the leaders in GT Pro at the moment, they've just come in making their stop. This is how quickly it can go wrong. The McLaren may be a little less stable. That's early to lose the car.
Very indeed, and in turn, I think it's really disrupted how I think they may have been wanting to approach these final couple hours or so. It's been that type of an event I've noticed all throughout this entire day, though, and throughout this entire race, where it's looked like a team maybe starting to fall down, or maybe starting to have that weakness set in, or maybe trying to come back from the penalty. And that's been one of the crazy things of the day I've noticed throughout much of this is, even when it's been that sort of case, Luchu Black still ends up getting the lead and within an hour or two after a penalty from Apex Misters. Then you have Ross Booth looking like he was going to run away. It looked like Torque was starting to slow down a bit. Torque in turn led for a fair bit before that slide. So it just seems like it's one of those races where even when the best have seen some of the penalties as we've seen earlier, or in some of the cases the spins or the damage to come back from, they've been able to come back from it outside of course Satellite Racing 64 car.
Yeah, so sometimes you do see those ebbs and flows in racing, and I think a race of this distance, we've seen 8 hours here, Joey, it really does give you a lot of time. If you make a mistake early, you've got a lot of time to make that time back up. As we just see in the background then, the Precision Racing Esports blue team, the number 2, dive down into the pit. But they've got time to work with, they've got time to get themselves through, but this is where time is running out, and the longer you go into a race, the more that a mistake will be punished.
Yeah, I think, what is it? You know, make your bed early, take your medicine early on, and that way you can kind of climb out of the hole that you've dug yourself. And you're right, if you have a mistake late in the race, there isn't much time to recoup your losses out there. And just got to keep it clean. I mentioned Sebring is a bumpy place. It can take and it can give. Attrition is always high at this place, and you just always got to keep your head on a swivel, going by GT cars, going into brake zones, getting on the marbles here, and especially if you overheat the tires a little bit too much, you got to really be careful going into the next set of corners, not to overstep the limits, because if you got overcooked tires and they're maybe a little bit dirty, you will not have the grip that you used to have, and you can find yourself in a wall pretty quick around this place.
You absolutely can, and especially if you find yourself just tripping off a line. They've put a lot of rubber down around this circuit. You certainly notice it, especially there through Cunningham Corner, Justin, how very quickly the marbles have built up over the course of the long hours of racing that they've done. They've gone over 6 hours at this point, and those tyres aren't going to be the most happy in the world when they go through the marbles and effectively decide, well, you try and go through on a morning, and you know, it's almost like you get to the top of the stairs and you find that, you know, your child's left a bit of Lego there for you to try and avoid as you go all the way down. It's that sort of balancing act you have to deal with.
I mean, if I understand right, and I can definitely sense the feeling some people may have, stepping on Lego may as well be one of the hardest punishments manhood may ever have in anybody in the entire history of the entire world. I'm being very sarcastic, so please don't take that as seriousness. But in all seriousness, in terms of the marbles, yeah, it can absolutely carry you off the racetrack if you're off that racing line. There's also that marble polishing that was talked about a little bit by some in the past few weeks. That was a part of the iRacing builds too, where you see that rubber buildup. And to put it lightly, if you're outside of where that marble polish is per se, or where that rubber buildup is on that line, that's going to be very difficult for you as a driver. So we take a look at the pit stop.
Yeah, so that will be the Quality 074 that is in Andy Ticehurst then, bringing that in. Also, we've seen down in the BRT Odin car is there, the 88. They were 57 laps down off of the race lead, and they've been in there for a rather long time. That pit stop is north of 2 minutes now in the box, which indicates, okay, we're going to need a little bit of damage, but they're sitting in the car. I think they're trying to save as much they can of that car, Joey, and just find a finish to the end, as there goes the Quality car back out and away again. But this is what endurance racing is. If you're many laps down, you're looking for a finish.
Well, and you mentioned it just a little bit ago. Sometimes it gives you time to claw your way back up, and you're right. If you got a little bit of damage out there, go ahead, get what you can fixed. If you got a bunch of damage, well, go ahead and take it off in chunks, I guess, out there and get back out on the racetrack at least at an appropriate speed. And I would say the only difference here is that here in iRacing, we don't have as many yellow flags. So if you do have those mistakes, I think the wound is a little bit bigger than it is in real life.
Speaking of those yellow flags, we are still in a range where there could potentially be one more yellow flag to go in this race. We are not entirely certain on when or where that is, or if there will be one at all, but those yellow flags have certainly neutralized the races and brought themselves back into play. Now here is Andre Wolf as we take a look on board going towards Sunset Bend. That Sunset Bend is named aptly for a reason there, Justin, and especially when you're hitting this sort of time of the evening, about 5:20 in sim time, that's when the sun's going to get a little bit low, and when it drops below the cloud line, that's where you get a lot of trouble trying to pick a braking point.
That might be, if you haven't already, in terms of your preparation, really test your actual true ability, because if you can't visibly see your exact marker, you better have it memory focused, or rather memory memorized, muscle memory, to be able to know exactly when you're supposed to hit that mark. So, in our words, a lot of hands probably going to be up coming over top the head, like around the eyebrows, like you do in the real life, but it's also going to be intriguing how many drivers end up slipping up or making a mistake there where they lose that focus that extra bit with the sunshine in their face and miss the mark.
Eric Mickey will come out of the pits for BRT Loki. We continue on then through this middle sector of the lap. And this is where you're going through, Joey, what I love about this circuit. You're effectively driving through all of the taxiways between the various airplane runoffs that you got that you can go forward. And basically, as you go through, or runways, I should say, but as you go through this section, you get to hear the tower corner where the old control tower used to be. And this is where you really get a sense of, okay, you get through at Tower Corner. This is where the fast section of this circuit comes into play. You've done the technical. Now it's a little bit more stop-start as you go through a couple of chicanes here, like Jean de Bienne into the Le Mans chicane. And pretty much it becomes a case of you are running the airstrip.
Yeah, you're running the airstrip, and you know, this racetrack actually steps over itself quite a few times, or I shouldn't say steps over itself, but kind of winds back and forth with a few long straightaways. So you're right, there isn't very many opportunities for these long sweeping corners, but turn 17 is what I would consider a medium speed corner, and you throw the bumps in there as well, and all of a sudden it becomes an animal all on its own. And turn 1, I would say pretty similar speed as well, maybe a little bit faster than turn 17. Really got to huck the car in here, but you also have these slower corners on the front side of the racetrack, such as turn 7 that we're approaching here, probably the slowest area in this hairpin.
NRG recycled, or recycled NRG as the team is. Edward Shelley sets the fastest lap then of the race, a 1:47.776. And for Edward Shelley, you would have said earlier on in the race, Justin, that the car would have resembled something more akin to Frankenstein's monster, but at least at this point, 9th position overall. They're about 7 laps down on Precision Racing Esports Blue. They're looking at a finish, or what they're really looking for is retirements. This is just showing them what they could have done over the course of their racing.
Well, here's the major thing. That car was significantly destroyed. The last stint I was on a couple hours ago, it was very lucky to still be on the racetrack with how bad the front clip had been damaged. Well, with the amount of time that they've been able to take to sit down in the box, it seems, they've been finally able to truly clean that race car up, fix that race car up, get it fixed to where it's full tempo. But you're absolutely right. At this point, it's just a matter of trying to finish as many laps as possible, try and keep the car on the track to finish off the campaign on the circuit to take said checkered. And it would be a little bonus, yes, if there was some attrition that added some more spots, but it's not a given at this point. Especially at this mark when you have 60 estimated laps to go next time by. You basically need some cars to drop off right now if you want a chance for that to happen.
And speaking of drop-off, the cooling conditions here, Joey, we are into the evening right now. This track will only get colder and colder as it goes through, and as such, there are more opportunities for the car to spin around. Track temperature, when I jumped in at around 4 o'clock in the afternoon in sim time, was up at 100 Fahrenheit. It's dropped now to 87. What sort of things are you looking at in the car to try and sort of deal with a track that's cooling down?
Well, in my opinion, a hot track is the most difficult track to face. So as the temperature comes down, I think the majority of the cars, they're going to kind of come to the drivers, and you're going to have a situation that it's probably going to tighten up a little bit. So if you got a loose car early on in the day, it's definitely going to come to you. However, I would say if you got an understeery, pushy car in the daytime, going to these nighttime temperatures, you will still pick up speed, just based off of the temperature of the track and also air helping the engine make more horsepower. However, you're not going to gain as much speed as if you set the car up for the nighttime. And I think that's one important thing to note here, Jake, is that there's been cars that might have been fast during the daytime. However, as you see the 14 just dip a tire here on the back straightaway. It's all about the last hour and a half here, and if you got speed when it's nighttime, you can really pull away from your competitors.
Yes, and I think that we see that a little bit later on in races, that when you do hit the night, that there is a small difference in terms of the reference markers, and some drivers have a bit more confidence compared to others. There, though, is the Blue Chew Black car, which is your race leaders outright at this moment in time. 17 seconds to the good, putting a 15th lap in this race on the Composite Performance 91 Porsche out there at this moment in time. Ross Booth behind the wheel of that. But really, for Ross Booth, it's been a game of forwards and backwards between Talk Sim Sport by Wagner Schweißtechnik and Composite Performance. Composite certainly, I would say, are ahead at this point, whereas I thought Talk, maybe on strategy, might have themselves an opportunity to have an argument about it, Justin. It is going to be very close between those two come the end of the race.
I mean, they've been close much of the race in the first place, albeit we've seen, for the most part, Torque's run away in the early to late stages because they've had such strong long-run pace. The intriguing part to me has been Andre Wolf has not been as strong compared to the rest of the rounds throughout the campaign, to where it's been a bit more tricky for him to run away. And it's been more prevalent when we've seen Simon Graf behind the wheel as well. So it's been a much more tighter race as a whole in this class today compared to the rest of the campaign, I will say, with Sebring and the amount of specialty requires.
It's not just the specialty required there, Justin, but on top of that, you consider that this track has been beaten like a dead horse, you could say, at this moment in time, with the fact that absolutely everyone has pretty much raced a 12-hour of Sebring at some point, and or a Sebring race, because March is the month of Sebring, as well as madness, apparently, in college basketball, when no teams 1, 2, or 3 make it to the Final Four.
I mean, it's been the most unpredictable March Madness, to give credit, Jake.
I mean, it's true. I did my first bracket and was royally happy that I got Princeton, and royally happy that I predicted Miami to go to the Final Four. So that's about as happy as I can be. Joey, back to racing action. You do have, though, a really, really nice battle developing for third and fourth. We're focusing on it on screen right now here in category. This will be the Composite Performance 12 car, the second of the composite cars here. This will be Eric Thomas as the two LMP2s go through, BRT Loki and Quality Control Racing 063. Those two, though, this is where Andre Wolf now needs to pick and choose the moment.
Yeah, and from what I'm seeing here, it looks like they're on very similar strategies in terms of the fuel game. So you're right, Rod and I are on board with Andre Wolf chasing down Eric Thomas, and I actually think that those two prototypes maybe helped close this up a little bit. And we saw the McLaren a little bit loose in turn 17 early on, but it seems to have plenty of speed underneath it. And you see the BMW just missing the apex there in turn 5 a little bit. This might provide an opportunity for Andre Wolf to try to show a nose down here into turn 7. I think he's a little bit far away, but he could send a Hail Mary, at least fill the mirrors a little bit, and you see how close they really get. I think some of that, Jake, is the McLaren top end is pretty good on this.
I tell you what, I believe Andre Wolf's listening to you, Joey, with the way that he's driving. It's like, okay, you want a Hail Mary? You know what? Let's go for it. Let's see what we've got. And this is a fire-breathing dragon, Justin, of a car. You know, you've got the flames that spit out of the back of the McLaren. It is a car which is very much a car that needs to be driven daintily, despite the ferociousness that is there behind. But really, it is all about, okay, this is where you don't want to lose your race because you've put in 6 hours and a quarter's worth of effort. You don't want to be throwing that away at this moment in time.
Yeah, if you throw it away at this moment in time, you're kicking yourself as an organization. You're absolutely frustrated with yourself. To put it lightly, you do not want to be that one driver who does that to your entire race and does it this late, because at this point, you can't recover. If it's done in the early stages, you can recover, but it's still going to be tough in terms of the mental side where it's like, why did this happen in the first 10 seconds? If you do it in the middle, kind of that in-between mark where you already have a lot of the position gain that you would have, but it would have to take the time with less time per se to make it back, but you already know what's on stake. Later stages, it's very hard on both ends of that spectrum.
It is, as through then goes Tom Guest for recycled NRG. So patience needed then for Andre Wolf for 2:01 flat on that last lap. You compare that with what they're racing against at composite with the 91, that's a 2-minute 0.2. So they are losing a lot of time by being stuck behind here, Joey. It's about a second a lap, but sometimes you do need to bite down and take the bitter pill, lose 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 5 seconds, trying to make a pass. Just to guarantee a pass, because you know that you'll have time to make that back up later.
Well, and not only that, but you got to remember, this has been a long race. You've chunked out a big part of it, and now it's time to not necessarily get the elbows out for no reason. You still got to be respectful on the racetrack, and I think all the competitors are aware of that, and I think you see that with Andre. He's just trying to come up with the right opportunity to make this move. Might have a little bit more pace in the McLaren, but still has to do it cleanly.
Yeah, a clean pass is oh so important, especially with the live stewarding team that is there and has been putting in the work and a lot of hard work to make MTEC over the course of the entire season, through the entire winter and into the spring. A huge undertaking and reality here, Justin. You look at the time that is spent from the stewards trying to make sure that everything is all sorted, accounted for, and ready together. You often forget that people like that who bring together sim racing are probably the least thanked out there, and it's that their time and their effort goes hand in hand with the real world lives that they have, and they come in and they volunteer for a series like this and go, right, this is the sort of series I want to try and understand and give my help and expertise to in terms of building a rule book and implementing that effectively over the course of what has been some incredible racing series so far.
Good point, but also in terms of that, you have to be able to have, well, you need to have thick skin, first of all, to be able to take any potential criticism, or in some cases, the temper flares, because some people don't seem to read the rule books. No offense to some people, but the rule book's there. You have to make sure you are able to calmly explain things without having your temper raise, or rather starting an absolute fist fight in the middle of a pit lane or something like that. So in other words, it takes a lot of discipline on that side. It takes a lot of commitment to do right, to be able to know what you need to be able to update or change, be able to review things back and forth to see what can be improved upon. It takes a full year's worth of dedication for each and every season, to be quite frank, when you do a season such as this or a series such as this, to properly execute it, to make sure you have a chance in the end to have a very well reputable series in turn, especially on the race control side, if you want to be able to have that control, but also have the framework for a successful series.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, Rome wasn't built in a day. And and any racing series is a sum of its parts out there. Now, look how aggressive the McLaren took that opening curve through Genderbien and in through this section of track. That car is battering the curbs, trying to gain as much of an advantage as possible heading here, Joey, over to this section of track. And I think the one thing that you do have to realise around this place is that you do, just quietly in an endurance term, have to respect the curbs around this track, because they're not just pancake flat, they are beveled in certain places and make life a little bit more difficult for some of these drivers. It's not as cut and dry as other curbs out there over the course of racing.
Well, I think the tagline, Jake, is respect the bumps. I know the curbs will play a big part here too at Sebring, but I get your point out there. Yeah, you can attack the car, or I should say attack the curbs in some of these cars, and right now you're pointing out the McLaren is eating them up out there in comparison to that BMW. And I also noticed that he's taken a little bit of a narrower entry to some of these corners, maybe just has a little bit more front end grip compared to the BMW, but for sure he is getting held up right now by that composite performance BMW. It's just a matter of time, though, until Andre Wolf, I think, picks his moment, gets close enough in a slipstream, and is able to make a late brake move, because he's poked his nose out a couple times.
He's tried to find the move, he's struggled to find the move, but I think Andre Wolf as well might be looking at this on a strategy level, potentially, Justin. If he feels he can save a pit stop compared to those who he's around, then, or save just a little bit more fuel so he can splash and dash even less, that's still a bonus. That's still really good for Andre Wolf and what he wants to accomplish with the Talk Sim Sport by Wagner Schweiss Technic team.
It's taken a page right out of, to be honest, his own book, because we've seen him do it a few times where whenever he's lost the lead even, he's just gone into conserve mode, followed the drivers behind in front, and just waited to see how things would unfold. The major thing with the stake or the strategy is going to be the late race convergence. Where are they going to settle in between Ross Booth and Andre Wolf? Right now, I'm not so concerned about Thomas. If anything, he's more so of a pawn to be able to save the gas. It just so happens to be the air composite car. In this regard, you save fuel where you can, eventually try and make the move, or you have the composite car try and break down the line and cost you some time.
Well, it's going to come down the lane. That's why it's going to cost a little bit of time. Eric Thomas fully finding out where the limits of the fuel tank are for the Composite Performance 212 machine out there overall. So they will dive down into the pits. And Joey, BMW, this is a very, very unique car and will always have a sim racing heritage and lineage that goes with it. Talk about how this car is designed and in terms of what it means for sim racing.
Well, I know that BMW really put the car out here in the virtual world before it actually hit the racetrack, and that's pretty cool. And not only that, but the steering wheel in this car, designed by Fanatec or Fanatic or however you want to pronounce it, also the same exact steering wheel that is used in the real GT3 car. And other than that, it is a full GT3 spec, so it's built to those homologation rules, just like all of the other cars out on the racetrack. But I think in terms of that crossover, I agree. It's really neat what BMW did in releasing this car virtually, letting all of us kind of go test it out, go play with it, and then use probably some of that data into the real world and see how it goes out and performs. And the car's actually been in competition now for, I believe this is its second year, so it's got some legs underneath it.
Certainly has some legs. Another car that's looking to get back some legs over this stint is Martin Zayeveld, who is chasing down Carter Kundinger in the number 13 Composite Performance car. Carter, you could say, Justin, is one of those drivers who absolutely is a stonewall marquee member of what US Endurance is all about when it comes to sim racing on iRacing.
One-time sim racer. I think Derek Watson for the previous stint can really speak on his abilities too. He's been with multiple different organizations and elevated them at least 5 different levels higher, to say the least, because he can get your car clean, he can keep it set clean, he can run fast laps, he can run at high level competitions, he can run at top level speed in terms of top split competitions. He's got good speed as a driver and has for about the past 7 years when I think about Car Container and the different series I've seen him run in different types of cars with that versatility as well.
Well, he's done a 49.6, and it's a little bit eye-watering here, Joey. When you turn, you look at Martin Zayeveld, and it's 148.9 by comparison.
Yeah, you know, it's a little tough when that car behind you has a little bit more speed. You kind of focus on your mirror a little bit more each lap, but I think if I was to give some advice to Carter right now is just focus forward out the windshield. See the number 64 Satellite Racing Red here in pit lane, taking some service up on the jacks. But if I was Carter, just focus forward, do what you can. Remember, there's still an hour and a half left. Yes, the time is dwindling down, but run your race.
Run your race, and we focused on the Satellite Racing Red Team car because there were 3 points down coming into today at Sebring, needing as many points as they can get, and it was within the opening hour, really, Justin, where their issues pretty much befell them, found themselves in trouble, found themselves dropped way down the order. They were 2 laps down with 3.5 hours to go. They brought the gap down to 1 lap. But the issue that they've had has been the warnings that have come through in terms of the lapping or the unlapping process that they've been having to deal with. Basically because they can't show a turn of cadence once they unlap themselves out there on track, which indicates that, yes, you should be unlapped, you should be driving away. They can't drive away from the race leaders when they unlap themselves because of the damage that they've sustained. And as such, they've been pretty much pigeonholed into, we have to do a different strategy in order to get by these drivers.
Yeah, Alex Gao absolutely drove the wheels off the car when he jumped in. It's the tough part, though, of once you get the driver's sense coming in, no offense to his teammates, they've been not able to match that tempo because, in part, you're talking about drivers jumping to a damaged car that they haven't felt when it comes to compared to Alex Gao, when he had been running behind the wheel for about 3-4 hours with the damage, was used to how to get speed out of it. So I think that's part of the difference maker right now with Satellite Racing Red and why we've seen that tempo fall off from earlier. And it's to where they need strategy absolutely to go their way. They need a caution to go their way. They need a caution to come out to the point where they can unlap themselves once everyone else tries to duck on in, if they're even close enough to that point. So there's a lot that has to be on the line here.
Joey, you also look at it as well in terms of what Satellite are looking at. This is a number 64 car that has been up there 5 pole positions so far this season, started on the pole here for this one as well. And looking at the way that they've been trying to go about business, that they've been trying to go and get results, legitimately the entire season has been, well, okay, how does Blue Tube Black keep themselves in the mix? The answer's a pretty simple one. Finish.
Yeah, just finish out there, and 64's struggling a little bit right now. It got plenty of pace inside the race car, but sometimes when it comes down to the season-long battles, it's just about finishing and limiting the bleeding on your bad days. And I tell you what, some of the best champions can tell you that those bad days, all you got to do is get through them. Don't make them any worse out there, and you can stop kind of crying, if you will, and move on to the better days, which will happen. You just kind of got to slog through some stuff. However, if you keep shooting yourself in the foot and you don't finish races, it can be a tough battle the entire season.
It certainly can be a tough battle the entire ways of the way. 1 hour, 30 minutes and 4 seconds remain here of your MTEC finale out here overall. The Majors Teams Endurance Championship brings itself to a close here at Sebring. We will see you on the other side of this small break. And when we do, we'll have the conclusion of racing here around this amazing Florida racetrack.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
There's a bear in the woods.
Right, come on, you fatty. Come on, fatty.
I don't even know who lives in there or what the hell's going on there.
Could I sleep in there today? Oh, no room.
And we're on the way there. Ignore the fart. We go, and a bit of that, and a bit of
Singers, James, singers I've got. My pedal broke, man. And thanks to Showdown Bros, Mickey's on the most useless street in the world. Come on!
Always keep a shoe in your kitchen department, guys.
Don't worry, it's the COVID talking. It's probably wild boar, a few bears, a lot of women washing their cars saying hi on the side of the road.
Go on, Mick, feel it, Mick, feel it. I might be going mad.
Want to see me underwear?
It's what we expected, maybe, but they do get the wish. The final caution then has just hit in the Majors Teams Endurance Championship, and it means that the field for the final time is neutralized. Jake Sperry, Justin Prince, and Joey Atterbury here, the three here to bring you around to action. On top of that, you've got Ryan Bauer, who is there on our cameras, directing those cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Just the one team then, Justin, dived down into the pits out of everybody. It was the number 9 Apex Misses team who decided to come down in. They have pushed themselves to the back of the pack now, but they have changed their cycle compared to everybody else, and it might be a winning formula. The only team to do it, though, indicates that it might be a gamble more than anything else.
Yeah, this window is extremely tight based on the numbers, because prior to this, the longest stints were around 22, 23 laps. And we're talking about 45 laps to go estimated right now. So it might very well likely be a one-stopper. With the pit lane open this time by, it's still going to be a bit tight. But if you're amongst those who will burn the gas like some who did 21, it could be a bit more tougher.
Now, that would indicate why the number 9 cars come down. Now, Joey, that could be trouble, and they're under investigation right now for entering a closed pit lane.
Yeah, and you mentioned rules, right? And I know that MTEC has a vast rule set with these yellow flag procedures, and I'm more familiar with the real-world IMSA stuff, and basically, sometimes a car has to enter pit road even under a closed pit, and they can only take emergency service, basically a splash of fuel, and then get back out there. But I'm curious to see how MTEC will handle it and how much service that car actually took.
It might be a fair bit of service because it's the sort of service that will jump them right up the order. Now, watch as Satellite Racing Red don't take service here at the stop. Now, this is crucial for them because it puts them back on the leading lap here, Justin, in this race.
Yeah, this is huge timing, in my opinion, and just double checking, yes, based on the queue, it looks like they are indeed up at the front to be able to get that lap back, which is an absolutely significant part. Here's the tough part. They can't make it on one stop from here. And that's the worst possible feeling, where you have to, where you know you got your lap back, but at a time where you now are in a box where you have to two-stop it when everyone else can basically one-stop it.
Oh, look at this coming out to the pits. It's Quality Control Racing 074. Andy Ticehurst has worked the magic at the stop, fourth coming in to it, and has come out ahead of Grzelski in the Blue Chew cars. That's brilliantly done, and thank you very much. Jumps up the order. That's exactly what the doctor ordered in terms of what they needed, Joey, in in LMP2 Pro-Am.
I'm trying to think of how that could have happened, and what I'm coming to is maybe had a little bit less, or I should say more fuel in the tank, therefore took less fuel in the pit stop, shortened that time, and you're right, was able to capitalize on it. Big mover up a few positions, and I tell you what, those are the easiest passes to make on pit road.
They are, and the best bit about it, especially under a caution period, Justin, is that a pass in pit road under caution conditions is what I'd like to call free real estate.
Yeah, it's free real estate that allows you to be able to build your wildest dreams. From the smallest of tiny homes to the biggest of condominiums, to the skies they go. But in turn, you pick up that real estate, in terms of the race scenario, you can write the whole script basically for how this race can fare out. It's the matter of if everyone else keeps that copy or if they light it on fire.
Yeah, that is the key, and crucially, the wave around given now for number 64, Satellite Racing Red. Ayrton Williams had been struggling and trying to get the car sorted in terms of damage, and you sort of find, Joey, with a car that is damaged out there, has been struggling with damage, that you see more of the talent of a sim racer when a car is damaged compared to when a car is clean.
Yeah, it's a tough hill to climb, as I say, but can you climb it efficiently? Can you still do that? And I know that the talent behind the wheel of those satellite racing cars is deep, and I think no matter who is driving those cars, they're going to be plenty fast out there. You're right, they're going to have to deal with that damage. And honestly, if I'm calling strategy for that satellite car, pack up for this restart, and as soon as it goes green, I'd probably dip down to pit road, come get some of that fixed. Just make sure to stay on the lead lap, because it's going to provide you plenty of clean track when you come back out there.
Yeah, that clean track is going to be so very vital, and we'll be watching that over the course of what is an hour and 15 minutes at this point in time. These drivers will all know and understand that this is a long process here of making sure that everyone is good. The 88 car will also get a wave around. No surprise there for BRT Odin out there, Justin. They just need the 72 more wave arounds to get on the leading lap.
Unfortunately, I don't think there's as many laps available as there is wave rounds they need. But why not? Why not? And make sure you at least take the checkered flag for the final time of the campaign. And it looks like a penalty's come in. Apex Missers EOL penalty.
Yeah, at the end of the line, move to the back of the queue. You went into the pits while it was closed, so any advantage they would have gained by doing that, they will now jump to the back of the line. Now, the question's going to be, does the back of the line also indicate with the cars that are getting the wave arounds as well, Joey?
Yeah, I'll be curious to see, and do they go to the back of the complete line, or do they just go to the back of the lead lap of the GT cars, or where is the number 9 car going to end up? But no matter what, they are getting shuffled back for entering that closed pit.
Yep, so they're all trying to shuffle around and just make sure that everyone's getting the wave arounds that they need. So the 019 machine now will get a wave around on top of that. So recycled NRG will get one of the laps back that they need. They were 9 laps down. They're now down to 8 laps down at this stage. So they're able to get another one back that they've certainly been searching for. But at this point in time, keep an eye out on the top 2 who are there at the moment in the GT. So LMP2 wave buys are complete, but in GT, it is Talk Simsport by Wagner Schweiss Technic who are in front. So that's the GT Pro leaders. In second position, Justin, the GT Pro Am leaders, Twin Turn Sim Racing.
And they've been very quietly strong throughout this entire campaign. Not a surprise to see them up towards the front. Both the composite cars are right there in terms of the running order, and there's no distance between them and Twin Turn in terms of this lineup. It's more so how things are split up for the time being, I believe, when it comes to torque. I want to see fully how it's properly sorted, though, as you already see them moving over to the side to be able to properly sort them for the restart.
Yeah, so this is one of the cool things we've seen. We've seen it on a number of times before, but what you find is that drivers will now push, the LMP2s will push to 100 kilometers an hour or 62 miles an hour. Quality Control Racing's 074 will have control of the field, and the LMP2s then, as they merge single file, will find a way through. Now, you can see very quickly on the back there's the BRT Odin car there, Joey, going, wait for me! I need to join that list as well!
Well, and I'm more paying attention to this number 9 car out here, because looks like with all the prototypes going by, they are not getting to go by the GT field. So we're talking about that penalty that was applied to the number 9. Not only are they in the back, but they are in the way back of the bus.
Yeah, that's a very way back. They've got to go through pretty much everybody out there. I tell you who did manage to get through all of that group. It was, in fact, Satellite Racing Red, who are able to jump up now and find themselves in 6th place. So it was a full wave through that they got through, and now they're in 6th. And they do have a chance on making something happen here with this group. Their key here is 3. It's the magic number, Justin. 3 points. They've just got to get ahead of Nate Grzelski and Blue Chew Black come hell or high water.
Easier said than done is the main thought that comes to mind there, because here's the tough part when it comes to Blue Chew Black. They're still thinking about big picture. Yeah, that's actually the inverse, because you know why? If I understand this right, why not? If Blue Chew Black decides to let their teammates a little bit easily go, why not?
Let's not forget as well that Blue Chew Blue here, Joey, have their own championship to think about. It's a 1-point margin in LMP Pro-Am, and they are behind the 074. So they find themselves now in a really unfortunate situation where right now they lead, and all the 074 car needs to do is stay ahead of the 024.
Yeah, easier said than done, especially when you're lined up nose to tail. All for position now. This full course yellow stacked them all back up and ready to get all antsy on the racetrack again.
They're all getting antsy. They're all looking for numbers that they need. So at the moment, it will be Andy Ticehurst who will lead them around. And at this moment in time, taking that 100 kilometers an hour, looking to get themselves all sorted and ready. We are not quite in a position to allow ourselves to go back to green flag racing at this point, but they will take probably one more lap. Closed pit. Car comes down in. That will be Nicholas Schwartz in the Precision Racing Esports black Lamborghini coming down in. That's a closed pit. That will also be a penalty, Justin.
Yeah, I'm not sure why exactly they just came down with a closed pit. So that's going to end up indeed putting them way behind the 8 ball in terms of the play. I'm almost wondering if they were just that so close on the gas, or concerned about the gas mileage once we get back to green, that they said, you know what, it's worth the risk, come back, get down once more, see what they can do. Then again, they didn't pit during the first sequence, so why come down the last sequence is my big question.
Yeah, maybe you just look at a sequence like that, Joey, and it's very easily done in an endurance race, especially when you have that intensity and it's taken away through the form of a caution, that you just look around and go, oh, hang on a minute. Yeah, we were sort of in a daze, we weren't really thinking. Sometimes that does happen in racing where you just completely switch off.
Yeah, it can happen, but, you know, the best of the best are always on top of it, looking forward in the race, not just what's happening right now, but got to be aware of what's coming up and see everything on the horizon out there. And I'm just trying to strategize myself a little bit, Jake, because these cars are doing about 4-minute lap times out here under this full course yellow procedure, which, depending on when we go back to green, will be about an hour or just over an hour of green flag racing. And I know that's actually calling it pretty close to these full fuel stint times under green flag conditions.
It is.
Sorry to cut in there, Jake. I wanted to touch into, mind you, is earlier in the race, Bradley Hawley did receive a warning because he had elected to come down and serve a penalty before he actually got the penalty from the race admins in the iRacing sim. So this is kind of the second time it's popped up with Hawley. Mind you, Hawley is a strong driver in his own right, where he's come away with Pro Championship, or rather PRL Championships, and is his most all-time winningest driver in the Precision Racing League.
Exactly. So that is going to be a driver that would like to try and drive back up the order, would like to try and get as much as possible out there, but we'll see how they do in terms of how their run goes through in Precision Racing Esports Black Car. They're 4 laps down, so they don't lose too much. They're racing against CMSRacing.com Endurance. A reminder given then by Race Control that they must not leave any gaps out there. You are going to drive nose to tail. There is the weaving to try and get some tyre temperature in, with these evening conditions cooling the tyres even further out here at the Sebring International Raceway. And they know that the clock is ticking over. 1 hour, 7 minutes to decide a winner of this finale for 3 championships that find themselves in a position to be decided. It is with Andy Ticehurst at this stage. Green flag and a superhuman jump. Was that too much of a jump by Carter Kundinger as he went forward straight to the race lead? Goes Composite Performance 13, a tap into the wall then, and round goes Blue Tube Blue. Big disaster then in the Pro-Am Championship, and that is going to put a number of cars off. It puts Beati Odin off the road for a moment. It put Beati Loki off the road as well.
Unbelievable. And what can you say? Restarts bunch everybody up. Restarts leave lots of vulnerability in terms of attrition. Already had a little bit of blocks and cuts there. Looked fine in terms of the entry until they got so low, they hit the wall. It was self-inflicted.
It was, and it's those small mistakes. That team has done so well, Blue Tube Blue, but they knew they had to make moves early, and that restart was full of anxiety because they'd spent so long under that pacing period. There's Eric Mickey's view. He basically got channeled there, Joey, into an avenue that he couldn't escape from.
There's funnels that happen, and turn 1 starts out so wide and gets so narrow on the exit. Throw a car perpendicular right in front of you and it gets even more difficult. A little bit like Frogger with nowhere to go.
Very much like Frogger with nowhere to go at this point. There is your leader. It's the Composite Performance 13 who are out there in front. But I wonder if they're going to get protested about that restart, and that might bring the stewards into play to get an understanding of what's going on. Nate Grzelski currently for Blue Tube Black in second. Quality Control Racing 074 is not very happy at the moment. There's a lot of communication over the radio right now, Justin, between the two teams, and they're looking at it going, we think that might be good. And I think the 074 team, who have the right to be a little bit unhappy about the way that start went, are going, wait, you're serious? That was good?
I mean, that can go either direction for one, but second, part of the reason for all that discussion point there is in terms of how that restart played out. A lot of drivers picked up a lot of spots, it seemed like, by going around by the start and finish line. timing up when they got the green flag command, so to speak, from the race control. So, to be quite frank, that could be very critical in terms of what we were talking about in terms of the gap between some of the drivers from Torque and some of the others.
Yeah, and it's all about, did you make a pass before the call was made? And one of the cool things about the iRacing replay system, Joey, is that it does, especially after a race, record all of the voice communications that are put into sim, so you know exactly when race control has said when the go is and who's got to jump and who hasn't. Gap 0.7 of a second for Composite Performance, who are looking to come away with a victory here in this final race of the season, something that they've desperately needed. Down 7th in the championship, they could gain a whole heap of points with a victory here.
They could leapfrog a big ton, just like that restart there. But tell you what, Nate Krachelski in this 14 has turned it up a notch, and he's hunting down Carter Kundinger. You see him down the back straightaway. These top two have really separated themselves from Andy Ticehurst, and even though we got a leapfrog on the start that's kind of under review, gonna have a good battle for the lead on the racetrack.
Speaking of great leapfrogs, Justin, what about Ross Booth for Composite? He knew he needed to make a bit of ground up off the start, but look at this. He is flying, trying to chase Andre Wolf. Trouble in the background, big issues off, and that is the Sentry car of what is smiling Pete Harrow, finding himself the wrong way around, turned by BRT Heimdall. Second time they've done that in 4 hours. Anthony Flores, the perpetrator this time.
Yeah, that got ugly, and first of all, Pete's not going to be smiling at that one because he had the check up, and BRT Heimdall comes up behind them. You see the small little check in the roll, goes through, keeps it a bit more on the throttle. By the time they start lifting, around goes Century Sim again. It's not been a good day for Pete.
No, it's not been a good day for him, and it's not going to be a good day for BRT either, seeing as they just completely drove through the back of the Sentry car. You can see not much that he can do, and Pete Harrod there doing everything possible, Joey, to get out of the way and off the road. It did leave 3 wide as they went through, but that is not what you want to be seeing out there on the second lap of your restart going through. A big checkup at probably the biggest checkup place on the circuit.
Yeah, and turn 16 it's always so tricky. There's just the slightest crest here, and you see the racetrack actually just falls away ever so slightly after apex. So any contact to the inside rear, it's really tough to recover.
It is so tough to recover. So Composite Performance have the lead. Blue Chew Black in second. Quality Control Racing 074 find themselves in third. And it is Satellite Racing Red in fourth. Quality Control 074 have the LMP2 Pro-Am Championship wrapped up. If it stays like this, Satellite need to find 2 places and about 5 seconds worth of time, and they might need some help from one of the most respected figures in US endurance sim racing in iRacing in the form of Carter Kundinger. There then, Justin, is a pass for the race lead. Then Ross Booth has got it then for GT Pro.
Yeah, and this has gone back and forth all throughout the race. Was about to touch on that. And from what the understanding is, slow down pony. Watch through some of these S's. See a lot of the runoff space utilized in the first place there. Might have been in the section just prior. And if you don't serve the slowdown in the sim, it forces you to go down to the pit lane. So had to take the small loss there. Take the slowdown, stay in the draft and turn, try to regroup. There's still an hour to go on the clock just about to try and battle it out.
Well, here's the issue with this battle, though, and Joey, you were touching on it going through the caution. You were wondering, well, why hasn't Talk Simsport by Wagner Schweisstechnik come down and made a stop? 16 laps on their stint. They're due one more, unless they think everyone's due one more. This is going to be a really awkward situation for them, where they're going to be down a lot earlier than everyone else is.
And I think that's the only Hail Mary that they've got is, all right, everybody else has 1 stop to go. And you're seeing the difference here. Look at how light and fast this McLaren is on the straightaways in comparison to Ross Booth in the Porsche. I think Ross knows this. So even though both of these competitors do have to come down 1 more stop, that McLaren will have to take a full tank of gas in comparison to their competitors, probably only about a half a tank. So they're still got a big hill to climb.
that hill to climb is somewhere to the tune, you'd feel, of about 10 seconds that they've got to try and make up then over the course of having fresh tyres. Ross Booth, though, is now back behind and is going to have to try and find a way back through again. Flicking through now into the Le Mans chicane, leading on to this Ullman section of track, which now this Ullman straight leads to that Sunset Bend, which now gives the name in these evening conditions. Here comes the Porsche against the McLaren. Which way are you going to go? It is going to be no way. You're going to lift out of it, and this is clever driving, I think, from Ross Booth. He knows he doesn't have to make a pass on the Macca in front. He will have to sit and wait, and maybe he can roast the boot luggage that's there in the front of that car and say, oh, whatever I've stored in here is going to be pretty toasty by the end of this race with the McLaren Flame just in.
Wolf's been able to cook his opponents all season long in terms of his long run tempo. It's just a matter now of can he set sail. He was nearly a second quicker last time around. Same can be said of the battle going on with Composite with Cundinger trying to hold on. Blue Chew Black has been quick all day, and every time they've had adversity, they've been able to power their way back up to the lead. Here we go.
Grzelski looking really close, looking really hungry for a move on Carter Cundinger, and the Composite Performance 13 didn't quite get the run he wanted. Cundinger was very, very narrow, but here comes the defensive move, hard over to the inside of the circuit, trying to shake him off right, trying to shake him off left as they go through into Sunset Bend. He's trying to shake him off here because he knows if there's a good run out of Sunset Bend, Grzelski's got a chance towards turn one. It's going to be close between them right now. Look at that gap. It's going to be only a couple tenths of a second as they cross the stripe. Now, which way do you want to go? He's going to leave the door open here at turn one. Does Grzelski go for the move? Yes, he has a look, but look at that, powering around the outside, Joey. Brilliant stuff by Carter Cundinger. He holds for now.
I think, we mentioned it earlier, Carter's a smart racer. I think he knows that Nate's probably a little bit faster right now. They're both slip-sliding around through 3, 4, 5, but I think Carter knows that if Nate gets a run, he's not going to hold him up too much. However, until he gets that proper run, he will play defensive.
Car 9, Apex misses, 60-second stop and hold for causing a collision. They had fought their way to 5th place, and suddenly their hopes are probably 7th or bust.
This is just falling apart for Frank Schmitz, because at one point of this race, about 3-4 hours ago, he was running away from most of the rest of the field. Lucia wasn't even able to even chew at the gap they were starting to build up. Now, it's completely fallen off the rails for Apex missers. But still, up at the front, Blue Chew looking to power their way through, try and make sure they get it done in a powerful way to be able to make sure they powerfully get on by.
Well, this between these two is more about when the powder keg decides to go. They could decide to play the game as long as they can. Ross Booth all over the back. He can't afford to sit and wait too long. Not for his category, but for overall in GT, because Joey, Marc Antonio Federa is driving the wheels off his Porsche behind.
Yes, he is. However, I'm looking at the fuel strategy, and Ross is 6 laps fewer on his fuel stint than Marc Antonio Federa behind him. So I think no matter what Ross's strategy is right now is fuel save to the max behind this McLaren. That's going to give him the shortest pit stop time in comparison to everybody else. But I mean shorter, he should be 5+ seconds shorter, and that means when he comes out, he should have nothing but clean air. I think the one thing to worry about is getting caught up in a mess right now.
With the group here, 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 4th, because you've got as well the other composite car, the 12, the Beamer is there in 4th, that is still a part of this group. Along the Flying Fortress Straight, through the Bishop's Corner, into Gendebien, then the right, flicking through the left and rights, then of the Le Mans chicane, leading to the Ullman Straight. These drivers in GT haven't had a chance to see, really, the back so close of the Torque Sim Sport by Wagner Schweiss Technic car often. And when they've normally seen it, if they have over the course of this season, Justin, it's been in the barriers. It's been a car which has been win or find barrier, which is never ideal in the terms of a scenario, but it's a quick car in front that needs a little bit of help, and I think Andre Wolf knows he's in a race.
I mean, everybody's in a race, but I think I know what you mean in terms of how it's contested. He's in a battle. I think is the better way to phrase it. And to be quite frank with how this could play out, Ross Booth, whenever he's gotten some slipstream, after a few laps of saving, has pulled on by several times. Andre Wolf, I think the reason he played the different strategy. There we go.
Here comes the move. Nate Grzelski through at Sunset Bend. Here comes the up and under. Now there's lap traffic to contend with as well. Carter Kundinger, does he have enough? It'll be Josh Gowan in the Gowan Racing Ruby car that they'll have to get by. And that's going to be interesting. Car 286, by the way. That's the BRT Heimdall car. That gets a drive-through penalty for causing a collision. Grzelski leads for Blue 2 Black.
Really good move here, taking over the top spot, and now we're going to see what kind of pace Carter Kundinger has, because he's going to be the one chasing now instead of being chased. And jumping back to this GT lead, we see all 4 cars. I still think that Ross Booth is sitting in the catbird seat. The 3 cars that are around him, they're going to have to take more fuel than what that Porsche is going to have to take. And then also, the other thing, that McLaren will have to pit soon. That's going to give Ross clean air. That's going to be probably his go signal to finally unleash his own speed.
McLaren, Porsche, BMW. Your top 4 split by 1.1 seconds after 7 hours and 7 minutes and 7 seconds worth of driving out there. So that's going to be big. Ross Booth taking a nice look. We go on board with Eric Thomas's perspective of it, going through the Sunset Bend. Very shallow there. He almost didn't have enough speed. And there is the penalty then. There was a little bit of hold then on the black flags for the team. Then number 9. Here comes Ross Booth, though. He's not going to wait any longer. He's going to get this through. But how's the up and under coming along then by Andre Wolf? He'll come back. He'll strike back at turn 3. Later on the brakes. Thank you very much. This is some great craftsmanship between the two.
They've done this all race for the past few hours, but look who's in the conversation. The Pro-Am leader is right here. And as well, the other composite car for the 12 is also right there in the mix as well. A 4-car battle for these drivers for the lead.
Well, there is the go through, and now how do you go about it and make it happen? 286 had served the penalty under the yellow flag conditions, served before it could be handed out by the stewards. They will note that. They note that it's served correctly, but in future, don't do that. Still side by side through Cunningham between the 2 Porsches who rub fenders together, and now going through. Can you shut the door? You're going to do that to the Pro-Am Championship leader, Ross Booth. You're ruthless, but they're trying to find a way through. They beat and bump and bang through at the tower section. Federa holds off Eric Thomas and that is a beefy BMW to try and hold off in a pushing contest, Joey.
Yeah, well, both of these cars are pretty big because the hips on that Porsche are very wide. We're going to catch this replay here on GSRC and take a look down into the tower turn. You see Eric Thomas get down there, give a door slam to Mark Antonio, and try to drag race it off. Doesn't get the position, though, and that all started because Mark Antonio and Ross were racing side by side for so long. Eric Thomas said, hey, I want a seat at the table.
He definitely wanted a seat at the table. It's a case of pass or be passed out there, and that was very much the scenario that they have. In comes the Torque Simsport by Bike, the Schweiss Technic car into the pits. 50 minutes. This will be a long stop for them to bring themselves home. They've got a lot of work to do. Now this is 2nd and 3rd out there in class racing, and already just that battle alone there, Justin, cost them 2 seconds.
And that's what I talked about earlier. When it comes to a race like this, you need to be smart. There's the driver change to close it out, and now it gets interesting because this is the alternate fuel strats that we're seeing with the stops. I think these drivers can make it. The tough thing's going to be now, what does Composite do with Ross Booth? Do they underfuel the car? Does that become the winning difference compared to a 37.5-second stop?
What we also know is that Simon Graf, when it comes to that car, is the fastest driver, and the fastest driver as well, Joey, by a long shot.
Well, we're just going to have to see how it all plays out. I love that it's going to play out on the racetrack, though. Varying strategies. It's great to see, but I want to see the battles play out on the racetrack. And right now, something that I've kept an eye on, Carter Gundinger hasn't let Nate Krachelski quite slip away.
Not quite, but it's now at the breaking point. It is just ticked over. 1 second for the first time. A little bit of draft has helped that, but that will come back through Jean de Bienne here, trying to close that margin back down through the Le Mans chicane. I think Carter Gundinger has caught the traffic at a very fortunate time. He's able to duck back into line, get as much as he can from those two machines in front, who are second and third in their respective classes, and then find themselves back into range. This is a really important phase. There isn't much traffic out there, Justin, but there's just enough to slowly affect everything.
And if they reach the traffic at the very worst possible times, like in the middle of a braking zone, that might be the difference between breaking away fully and getting yourself past. We've already seen it once or twice already, where even some of the fellow teammates have been used as picks against each other in this type of a race today. So for Carter Gundinger, he's doing a solid job keeping up. I think the Blue Chew car's got the quicker speed. The tough thing is they got a lot of open space. There's a lot of space for Nate to pull away.
There's a lot of space to pull away. There are a lot of battles up and down the order. It's worth noting that the gap between Blue Chew Blue and Quality Control 074 sits at 6.3 seconds. That is for the LMP Pro-Am Championship. That won't be decided until the checkered flag is flown in that. Just 1 point in the championship as they come into that then over the course of the racing that they've got. But there is your Porsche leader, your GT3 leader out there overall, dealing with some of the lap traffic that's there. Ayrton Williams, who's driving for Satellite Racing Red, is an interesting one. Now, lap time comparison is key. Simon Graf, who is now back into 5th position. Haven't seen a lap from him. He's got to go forward. But Ayrton Williams, this is important to talk about, Joey, because we know that the car is damaged, at least for the opening couple laps. Did a pretty good job of bringing that time. Doesn't have the pace, I think, outright to catch Blue Chew Black. They are relying on a mistake for the title to go back to them.
No, but they're looking pretty good in terms of salvaging their race right now. Sitting in the 4th place position, only about a second and a half, maybe 2 seconds off of the podium. So they can still see it on the horizon. Nothing is over yet. Just got to keep clawing away. And I think most importantly right now is don't make any more mistakes. It looks like they're going to have to take a little bit more fuel than the other competitors out there. Just kind of limit the bleeding because you're doing a good job climbing out of it.
7th and 8th in category here. Justin is important. This is Bradley Holly, one of the best out there when it comes to the GT, and he is trying to absolutely fly his Lamborghini, his screaming Lamborghini here today, to get close enough to Anthony James in the CMSRacing.com endurance machine. The issue that he's got an M-Power Eisenblut machine right in the middle. He's got to try and navigate past the Audi.
Easier said than done with how things have played out today. And I think for the most part right now for Bradley Holly, he's probably saying to himself in his head, blue flag, please serve the blue flag. And we've already seen one team get penalized for battling with the lap car, or rather the lap cars battling with the leaders in this situation. The M-Power machine, mind you, has had to fix mandatory repairs several times today. So this is the toughest part for Holly. Holly needs to go, but he can't seem to reel them in.
And here's the big difference maker here, Joey. You forget that, yes, it's an Audi engine in the Audi. It's also technically an Audi engine in both the Lamborghinis.
Yes, it is. The heads are a little bit different, and then you got a different aerodynamic package, obviously. But you're right. They are similar enough. They were based off of the same car initially. Same mom, different dad.
Pretty much. So what you're saying is that they're half brothers.
Correct, pretty much.
Cool. Right, that there is a little bit of racing history for you there. The Audis and Lamborghinis are apparently half brothers out there. So through they go, through now into the Le Mans section of circuit. Now look at this. Now this is interesting because the M Plower car is trying to unlap himself right now. And this is key because you've got to find pace. And it's the big pace that's there. Thompson does have that pace, but does he have enough to get away? And if it's enough, no. I think he's going to lift off, and you know what? It's not worth it. We're holding up the cars behind. Bradley Holly will get the free pass to go through, and now we'll have license to go out there and attack.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was waiting for them to do.
Sorry to interrupt you there, Justin. I think that was actually heads up not only to come in and get the fuel for your last stop, but you're a few laps down. You know, you see some competitors in the rearview mirror. I think they were just kind of letting them by, stepping aside from the race politely.
The polite way to do it. Ayrton Williams now looking to try and find the pass on Andy Ticehurst. This for a third place overall in this race. And you just start sensing that Williams is trying to find the margin of 48.6 over that last lap. Was a second quicker. 48.6 is as quick as Carter Kundinger, up then in second position. So a really well found time. Flicking through this section of track. Ticehurst is driving a really nice run at this moment in time, but you consider where Ayrton Williams is, where he wants to try and make that pass. You got to start wondering, okay, what have you got? He was talking about it before though, Justin. He's down 6K in the draft on the straights.
That's absolutely painful, to put it quite frank. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy when you're newly sliding up the track. And at one point, seen a little comment mentioning from them that, well, the wheel had been just about knocked off, if not knocked off, that race car. So let's put it right lightly. That car's lucky to be in the spot it's been. It's very lucky to have gotten both the laps back. It's the problem of they're a bit on the back foot on the strategy right now, which is going to be the huge part. Although, keep in mind, technically the pit window opens in 2 minutes.
The pit window does, and that's going to be where you start wondering who's made a pit, or who is going to make their final pit stop and gain an advantage here, there, and everywhere on the fuel. Who has managed to find a magic formula, and who can just hold on for as long as they possibly can out there at this point. Into the pits comes Anthony James for CMSRacing.com Endurance, the 278 down now into the pit. So they make their final stop with around about 42 minutes on the clock. So a few drivers then making the final stops of the race as Satellite Racing Red continue to chase. There in the pits is Anthony James, and it'll be interesting to see stop time here, how long it is. This is a good reference marker, Joey.
Yeah, we're going to see the final stops from all of the GT competitors here if they haven't done it already. And see him already down off of the jacks, and away he goes. 26.31 seconds in terms of total pit stop time there. Give us a little bit of a reference point.
Speaking of reference points, I just took a look at Ross Booth's last lap compared to the Talk Sim Sport by Wagner Schweiss Technik, Justin. Oh my word, is Ross Booth in another stratosphere right now in terms of pace. He just broke 2 minutes.
Where is this pace coming from? He's starting to hit some personal best lap times the entire event in this stretch right now. And to put it lightly, good time to try and do it. He's outpacing the Simon Graf machine by up to 2 seconds a lap right now, nearly. This is perfect.
Yeah, it's more than enough. It is pretty much fairy tale wonderlands for Ross Booth and Composite Performance 91. You wonder how hard he's pushing, knowing how much Marc-Antonio Federa is keeping the gap steady. 3.5 seconds the margin out there at this point. So there is still a chance that Ross Booth can't afford to slow down at this point. He is on another level, trying to really climb up forward and gain as much as what is there. It is worth noting that the Quality Control Racing 074 has just come down in to serve their final stop of the race, Joey. This is big for LMP.
Yeah, final stops going on throughout the entire field here, and you see the car not up on the jacks, already got the driver ready to go, making sure he's going to have the pit lane speed limiter on, and as soon as he is off and unleashed...
Oh, he's had an off! He had an off! Sorry, he had an off going through Genderbiet.
That's huge!
That was right in front of the satellite red car. We're going to have to try and catch it on replay because that would have brought the damage out. The 074 car is currently sat in the lane with the black and orange mechanical flag for damage, and their race and their championship is gone.
Unbelievable. And it's the same section we've seen, Joey, all day long with the curbing to the left side tire.
See here, this is the 15-16. Oh, you're right, Justin, and just took too much curbing. It almost looks like it might have unsettled or high-centered the car, and then once it got loose, it hooked drivers right into the tire barrier. You're used to seeing cars go left here, but yep, that left side curb caught him and bit him.
That is not what you want to see. A Pro-Am team that came into the championship race here at Sebring, 1 point down. The most winningest team this season with 3 to their name, 3 podiums. But that has also come at a price through the other 3 races where they haven't been as consistent as Blue Tube Blue and the 079 team. So as such, 074 car in the pits with damage, effectively out of contention here today now, here at Sebring. It pretty much puts Blue Tube Blue in a fantastic position because now they find themselves now up a place and doing a very, very solid job with the way that they've been racing forward, and now they sit with the Pro-Am Championship, and they can walk away with both the prototype titles here, Justin.
Again, a huge accomplishment for one. We've seen both the Blue Chew cars be right on rails all throughout the campaign, but keep in mind, quality control as a unit, well, before today, had been essentially all amongst the top 5 in a lot of the races or near the top 5. That changes obviously today.
It really does. And Joey, you have to remember at the start of the final yellow flag or the final green flag run, which we're on right now, that Blue Tube Blue car was sideways through turn 1.
Yes, it definitely was sideways through turn 1. So looking pretty good right now to be in the 3rd spot for Blue Chew Blue. I don't think they would have expected that given kind of the angle that they were looking at the rest of the field at the time.
Yeah, that angle is certainly going to be a lot to work with. There has been a driver change at Satellite Racing Red. They now bring in Gabriel Roos into the car to get themselves going forward. This is a chance now for us to talk over with Ayrton Williams once again, who joins us here in the commentary box. He stood by with Justin Prince.
Well, first things first, Ayrton coming straight for the car. Able to get on the lead lap in the closing stages here. Just inside the mark at the top end of the fuel window with under 40 minutes to go for the stop. How are things looking for your team? After all, the driver behind the wheel did mention that at one point the wheel was basically broken off the car.
Yeah, well, considering we're in the lead lap, that's an achievement in itself. But same thing where I think Gabriel's now in the car, so we'll see what his pace is like. But 15 seconds, it's a big gap to claw back. It's pretty much, we're just waiting for attrition. That's all we can do. We're not going to gain it back on merit at this current point. So yeah, we're just again putting in the laps. If something happens and we're promoted, well, that's a positive. But yeah, at this point we're just making sure we get home and don't have another incident. So yeah.
So just describe the handling of this car right now from what you felt during your stints.
Funnily enough, the car feels exactly like it does in practice. We're just missing top end, even though that it looks like it should be missing a lot of downforce. The only thing is Sunset is really strange. The force feedback through the wheel it's like it's not communicating it correctly. And the right hand is in particular, but Sunset out of all of them is really strange. Like it's very strange to ride, but otherwise the car feels completely fine, even though if you have a look at it, it looks like the nose needs to be replaced, but anyway.
Yeah, Woods did notice that the pace started to pick up in the closing stages of that stint as the track temperatures have gone down at this point. When it comes to a race such as this and a season such as this, just the emotions, what or how are those playing out right now, knowing how close the title came in with the battles we're coming into today and, well, now what has in turn developed?
I don't even know how to really describe it. In all honesty, this is, for me in particular, I want to build experience more than anything with this league. Just getting in the car, doing hours, like being in championship contention is just a plus for me. It does hurt a little bit, but you know, at the end of the day, I haven't had very good races. Like Spa was probably the only one that was really smooth sailing for me. Otherwise, Le Mans and Fuji, they were a bit topsy-turvy for me. So, in all honesty, I'm happy where we are. Of course, I would love to win the championship. That would be great. But I'm happy that we've been so close, and we showed pace. We've showed pace at every single race. So that, again, a big plus for me. So I'm happy with that. But at the same time, it is just a tad bit disappointing in a sense that we're looking at being second in the championship by a fairly small margin.
So you mentioned waiting to see how the attrition plays out here at this point. Essentially, overall, where's the main focal points now going to be for the off-season, for the series? Where is that focus now going to lie, knowing how competitive you and your respective group were, and also how well you've done in some of the various other series, including with some of the competitors you raced against instead of the PRL and some of the open wheel stuff?
Yeah, really, the focus for me will be actually getting in the car more as a general, because in all honesty, I do these and that's it, and that's where I feel like I'm quite clearly struggling with, in terms of consistency more than anything. I can have the speed sometimes. It's, in particular, my consistency is a bit lacking. So, in the time between the league, if I'm back in the car again, if I'm competing again with Satellite in the car in this league, it'll be mostly getting in the car and getting more consistent, because I had one good race, Spa, and then the rest have been, I might have been there on pace maybe, but just lacking consistency, putting the car on the wall, stuff like that. So it's just, yeah, I'm more focused on making sure that I can compete more consistently and be quicker with that.
On that note, thank you so much for the time once again. We'll let you get back to your team, Airleton.
Thank you.
Airleton, go ahead.
Yeah, so into the pits then is composite performance number 12. Then the 212 are in for their final stop. Now, where are they going to come out in comparison to the likes of the Talk Simsport by Wagner Schweiss Technik team, who are right now at this point heading around Sunset Bend? It's going to be pretty close, Joey, by the looks of it.
Yeah, Franco Margarella, also a driver swap on that composite BMW, but he's already off of the pit lane speed limiter coming into turn one. And I think that this heavy fuel load on the number 107, it's not paying dividends right now. They actually might end up off of the podium when they came in from the lead.
Well, this is big for the McLaren. They know that they've got to absolutely run forward for it. They do have a little bit of help, knowing that the BRT Heimdall team are going to be due in a pit stop, so they can jump ahead of them. But when it comes to twin turn and composite 91, Justin, I don't see a way that they claw it back unless they find an amazing turn of cadence.
Based on what we're even seeing to the point where they're behind the Pro-Am composite, there's no way. There's no way. They have not had the pace that they've needed to have at this point. And I'm not sure what to really say on that, Mark. Again, I noticed this trend with after the driver swaps compared to each other, but this is the worst possible timing for it to go the opposite way of the personal best when everybody else is setting their personal best. Let's put it that way.
like Nate Grzelski, for example, who puts a 47.5 on the board as Carter Kundinger dives into the pitch from second position overall. So in comes the Composite Performance 13. They will now pull into their box and take their pit stop. So too will Twin Turn Sim Racing and Marc Antonio Federa dive in and make their final stop.
The pit stops are falling, and you mentioned the 147.5. I'm going through and looking. I think that's actually the fastest lap of the entire race so far. The sun is setting. It's the golden hour. The temps are continuing to drop, and that means the times will get faster, at least if these drivers push the limit.
Marc Antonio Federa has already gone. Eric Mickey in for BRT Loki. They have quietly snuck up the order with the way that their races have gone. But now it's about Federa's charge forward, and they got a long way forward. Long stops being held. Precision Racing Esports Blue also in with Darian Roy. So that's another stop that's looking to be made. Now here comes Satellite along the front stretch, so they'll get ahead of them. But crucially, they will remain behind Blue Chew Blue and Christopher Schmelier, and there'll be a lot of work to do for Satellite Red to chase down. There is your race leaders, though, Blue Chew Black, and with pretty much everyone around them having made a stop, they're due.
I wouldn't be surprised to see it come in this time by looking like the arc. Yes, it is. So it's the matter of making sure there's no mistakes in the box. Very close for the speeding.
I think they've got away with one. I just think they've got away with one. We'll see when it comes to their pit stop how long it's going to be. But that was very, very aggressive. We're trying to get to the yellow commitment cone, getting that stop. That was right on the limit.
In-laps and out-laps are just as important as the fast laps on the racetrack, if not more important, because those are the things that most people don't practice. So you can actually make up a lot of time if you focus on those very small sections of the race.
Here's Carter Kundinger onto the Ullman Straight, so we'll be definitely looking to try and close down as much gap as possible. Flying up through fifth gear, off the Jackson away goes Nate Grzelski. The stop was immaculate. The immaculate pit stop, if ever we saw one. Grzelski might have just found himself an extra 3 more seconds there with that one. Sensational stuff from him. Look at the gap, it's now 12.7. What a stop.
Obviously put in as least amount of fuel as possible for it, if that was indeed the case for the pit stop delta.
All that needs to be said. That was perfect from Blue Chew Black. If they wanted to confirm the victory, that was the way they had to do it, and they did. Car 074, which is the quality control car, they have been out. Oh, that's not an ideal rejoin there from the Lamborghini there, but the quality control car, the 074's got a 3 lap here, Joey. Stop and hold for an unsafe rejoin.
Again?
Is that again? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's the second time I've seen that penalty. We've seen that penalty in the past few hours.
It's tough. You know, I think 3 laps, and I would have to go back and look at it all, but I know that race control is out here for a reason, and they are flexing some muscle.
They are, because this is the most crucial phase of the race, and that unsafe rejoin then, which will hit them again, will now put them in a position where they were 4 laps down, took the bullet, so to speak, and now they will be 7 laps down after the end of a 3-lap stop and hold penalty, which will be a real shame for them. But that's sometimes the way that the cookie crumbles in a race like this. In terms of those still yet to come down in and make a stop in your GT field, you've still got the Composite Performance 91, you've still got BRT Heimdall, who need to come in and make some stops, and those 2 teams are the ones outstanding at this point. Ross Booth, last time by, 2 minutes, .476. This is the key lap to try and get any understanding from the Twin Turn Racing Team car of Marc Antonio Federa, who is not being having much help with Christopher Schmelier, as we focus a little bit further forward on in this field with the number 14, your leaders overall. 2 minute .3 from Marc Antonio Federa. Then for Twin Turn Sim Racing, they are even in pace right now.
even in pace a little bit, but I don't think the battle is going to be over yet. It's still 25 minutes left, and even though the cycles are coming to an end, I know that Ross Booth still has to come into pit, so I got my eye on that 191 still. Make sure he doesn't make any mistakes, because speeding in pit lane could throw it all away.
It absolutely could, as we stay with our race leader for the moment. Absolutely flying at this point and looking to try and increase that lead. 12.7 seconds, the margin heading into Gender Bien on the 227th lap of their race. The team, of course, comprised of Nate Grashelski and Nathan Zhu, a two-person tandem, which has done absolutely fantastically. We've seen a lot of that, the two-person tandem. Jaden Hopp, by the way, not recommended motorsport's gone on, had an off, and that's a big off heading over towards Sunset Bend. To Le Mans chicane there, Justin.
Again, the off-track you just suggested. Not recommended. It's not the prime space to be able to gain time. If anything, it's a place to lose time unless you're an airplane to try and build up speed down the runway. But for the most part, though, Bellucci has been running up speed like it's on the runway and running away to set sail to be able to go up into the sky and run off into the sunset with the checker flag. It's been that type of a day. Again, up to a second a lap quicker. No one's going... It is even showing the chances of being caught at this mark.
I wonder if we can get a little replay about what happened to Jaden Hopp and the not recommend motorsport car and the big off, because it's not often that you say this here, really, Joey, but I think that car and that Lamborghini needed all of the runoff area here. Let's have a look then. Goes through the left, and it's the right where he gets it over the curb, but it hooks him over to the left instead of the right. It's not often that you get that close to grass over at that section of road. You've got an acre to work with.
No, and you called it. It was just that curb. We saw it bite a LMP car earlier, and it sent it drivers right, but this time it was a little bit more of kind of how the rally car drivers use it and hooking the car with the additional grip, and you're right, it spit it out drivers left this time.
So drivers left the issue. That's why it's gone a little bit the other way. And that'll be a real shame for them as they now look to continue on with their race. Still 15th overall, still in terms of class in 6th position. They won't be challenged at this point unless they have a big off, because they are 2 places away. Now, Simon Graf at this moment has a lot of time to chase, but isn't a million miles away still from that BMW in 4th. And that might be all that they can hope for at this stage, because that could be a podium with Anthony Flores still due here, Justin, to come down in and make a stop.
I think it's pretty prevalent that Ross Booth has this in the bag if he does, as long as he doesn't botch the pit lane marks at this point. And the important thing to mention, with the low fuel, it's a lighter car, carry more speed. He's absolutely flying still. He's doing exactly what he needs to be doing at this point of the race if he wants to be able to bring his team to victory right now. Constantly running in the 159, 5s to 7s for the most part. In fact, 3 of the past 5 laps, he's in the 159, 7s or quicker.
Ross Booth has been money, absolute money, with the way he goes. In comes Anthony Flores for BRT Heimdall. So this is the pit stop that should promote Composite Performance 12, who go through. Should promote then Talk Sim Sport by Wagner Schweiss Technik, who will go through. And now, with those cars then going through, the race now for Simon Graf is for a podium out there at this point, knowing that Composites race all of a sudden is just twin turn sim racing. There is Anthony Flores and the BRT Heimdall Ferrari in the pits. That will leave in the silver style there, Joey. It says so on the front, you can't really miss it. Or it's silver, I would say at that point. And the car, which is sporting the SpyX family design on the side of it, will now give itself the opportunity to go out and away and race some more.
Yeah, still inside the top 5 here, and I actually think they're the last GT car still on the lead lap, so don't really have to look in their mirrors at all, with the exception of the faster prototype traffic, and just kind of focus forward, enjoy the sunset right now. And I'm actually looking, they're about 30 seconds back from the closest competitor. So it really is just about staying consistent to the end of the race. Don't make any mistakes. And hey, you never know what can happen with other people's unfortunate mistakes.
It's Ross Booth. Ross Booth is in for the final stop. The 191 Composite Performance team now have themselves that final stop. Question will be, where does Twin Turn come out in comparison? They're just now heading onto the Ullman Straight, and this stop looks like it's going to be more than enough. Look at this from Ross Booth. You're not going to argue too much more about this. Thank you very much and goodbye. The half a tank left Justin to put into the car, and they have a monstrous gap as they come through. And look at the slew of GTs that come in behind, but all of Precision, Not Recommended, and also Century all dive in at the same time.
This should just about wrap up the mandatory pit stops, or rather the pit stops you want to be able to take to be able to get to the checker flag here. So at this mark, Ross Booth plays this out perfectly, because not only did he go further on the window because of how it played out, not only did he outrun Torque Sim Sport to be able to clinch this, he was able to put in so little fuel needed to make it to the end. He just picked up 16 seconds of the pit lane, the quickest stop of the class.
Oh, just beautiful. It is just beautiful. So you just sense that that is where you find all of your time. You mastermind the strategy then, Joey, to get the pit stop that you want at the end of the race. You've done your job.
I told you guys. I called it. You know, I was calling it. You know, when he was battling in there with that top four, he knew exactly what he was doing. Ross is a very savvy competitor. All he had to do was go on fuel save mode, and once everybody else got out of his way, all he had to do was turn it up to his pace out there, start hitting his marks. And Ross in this Porsche is one of the fastest on iRacing. Ooh, dips a tire off a 16 there, but I don't think it phased him one bit. All he's got is that sight set on the checkered flag now.
Yeah, the checkered flag is going to be what he hopes for. He's got a fantastic margin out there, and he now has himself in control for the Composite Performance 91 team. Now, what we do now have the ability to do is do a little bit of housekeeping of the 3 championships on offer here overall with the way that everything has been going. So with Blue Chew Black in the lead of this race, as things stand, they are going to walk away with the LMP2 Pro standings. Nate Grzelski out there in the number 14 car has done wonders with that run. In LMP2 with the 074 now back in 8th position, 7 laps down, it is looking more and more of a certainty that it's Blue Chew Blue who are going to come away with that championship in the 024 car that is out there overall. You then look to GT Pro, which is the final one. That may just be in Composite's hands. It's going to need one of you two here, Joey and Justin, to have a look at the points total, but they came into this one 25 points back. They're going to be in victory position, and with not even a podium potentially on the line then for the Torque Sim Sport by Wagner Schweiss Technik team. This could be the championship right here.
Well, and I'm going to jump in here because don't rely on me for points math over here. I can calculate fuel strategies on the racetrack, but oh my goodness, if it comes down to points, don't look at me, Jake.
Well, don't look at me. I don't have a working Excel account, so I can't actually access the spreadsheet to make that happen.
Well, I don't honestly know how this could play out here because, honestly, it'd be a bit of a collapse with Torque because they've outright dominated some of the races. And then today, they have this breakout where it seems they're able to build some distance when they already have the distance. But the second you have Composite on the doorstep, it seems like the back and forth, and then you do the driver change and it falls off the cliff several times today. I'm just not sure how to be able to handle this if you were in that respective camp, knowing you've been in control of your destiny much of the season, and then you have this in the finale.
3 seconds to chase, 3.4, and they've got 15 minutes to find it. So they've got effectively, with the way that they're driving in terms of time, 7 laps, Joey, to find themselves an extra place, which could give them the championship.
Yeah, good, but I'm looking forward right now. They are taking chunks of time out of Franco in front of them, but They're looking at about a 3.5-second gap, and once you eliminate that gap, you still have to get around that BMW. So 15 minutes remaining. Definitely just keep the focus forward, and you might be able to stand on the podium.
You just might, and that could be big when you bring it towards the end of this season. It may come down to who can find as much speed as they possibly can. This is going to be as close can get, but it's now about, can you get a little bit more out of it? Grzelski knows he's just got to bring it home. 16 seconds to the good. Main rivals in 4th position who have done wonders just to get back. I'll tell you what, Satellite may get a podium out of this. They're not a million miles away from Blue Tube Blue. The gap's 2 seconds.
Yeah, that gap still, I think, is going to be extremely difficult in terms of Blue Chew advantage you're talking about there. I'm not too concerned about that per se, because again, while Satellite's been quicker on the tempo, how are they going to, it's the matter of can they get enough speed built up to be able to make the slipstream work. You can see how quick they are in the corners with how good that car's been set up all year. It's the straight line that's the big thing. And remember, by the way, in your point calculations, there's the halfway to think about too with that halfway bonus.
Yeah, that halfway bonus will certainly have put some points here, there, and everywhere, which I think is going to be really crucial now in how they go about this final stage. They will understand it maybe a little bit better than we do. What is going to be so important at this stage? Where do you find those final points where it becomes so key? And now you start looking around and saying, right, okay, what do we want? What do we need to do? How do we go about and get what we need out of it? So everyone's going to look around and say, well, what do you get? It's 150 points for 1st position. It's 111 points for 4th place. So that is the big difference maker out there. But you also have to remember in terms of this race, I'm not sure in terms of this one, Joey, whether the drivers who are in an AM category position actually take pro points away from the pro drivers. Because if that's the case right now for Torque, then Torque are 2nd in their category.
Yeah, but Jake, I know that we got math to do, but check this out. This is officially a battle for the final podium spot. This the 6-4 car, even with that aero damage. Oh, look at this, and now he's going to get by. I think he just went by for the 3rd place, or am I? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm seeing that wrong. That was a lapped car. Gosh, I'm getting all excited over here for no reason.
Well, that's a lap car then, and that will be a pass then. So Christopher Schmelier still has a 1.1 second margin. That was Tristan Terracciano, the Quality Control Racing 074. So for Gabriel Rouge, oh, how much grass do you want there, Tristan? Going through. That very nearly was the end of that car indefinitely. But Gabriel Rouge, tell you what, he's not saying quit on this one. Christopher Schmelier knows, Blue Tube Blue, that an overall podium might be sayonara in a couple moments if he's not careful. 12 minutes to go here, Justin.
But at a time, it's just going to play it smart. He's 3rd, keep in mind, amongst the pro drivers. That's the bigger thing, I think, in terms of their focal point. 3rd on track is more so the motivational speaking points at this point. To be able to pass by Blue Chew Blue and say, okay, what could have been absolutely for the championship, but we did what we could at this point with what happened.
Yeah, so that's going to be key. So what is crucial is that Pro-Am doesn't use the same points pool as the GT Pro. So that will mean that effectively we're looking at 150 to 128. That's a 22-point swing out there. So 50, 40, 30. Yes, 22-point swing plus the halfway bonus points table, which I believe would be another 10, which would then be a 32-point swing as it stands, which would be enough for Composite to steal the title away by roughly 7 points, Joey.
Yeah, 7 points. That comes down to pretty much as close as you can get here at the end of the season. And Gabriel Rouge getting so close to that Lamborghini, laying it all on the line. They definitely want to spray some champagne to close this one out.
But here's the thing, I don't quite know who at 4 hours to go was in the lead of that category. And it actually might just come down to that, because that is a 20-point swing technically either way that decides it. Was it Composite or Torque? I want to say it was Torque actually who were up in front at that point at the halfway stage. So it looks like we might have to go back, take a look at 4 hours and say, well, who exactly is where at this point? So it looks like it's going to be pretty much as close as you possibly can get. 10 minutes to go here, Justin. And for at least 2 of the categories, it looks like it's a formality.
Can't confirm it was Composite, but here's the bigger part when it comes to at least the prototypes to think about. The drivers who had those positions at the time of their respective classes in Pro and Pro-Am, Frank Schmitz was able to steal away that spot at the halfway mark with how he'd been doing at the time of the Apex Missers. For the Pro-Am side, at the time it was Blue Chew Blue, who was running 4th overall in first in the respective class. So that answers your question in terms of that metric. Booth had been the class leader at the halfway mark, just about right at, mind you, just as the window was opening for pit stops.
Yeah, so that was key. So they called it then at halfway. So crucially for that then, Composite have control of their destiny. They just cannot afford to bring the car and find it in trouble. For Gabriel Roos, though, a chance of a podium outright. This is important, an outright podium, not a class podium, Joey. This is a bragging rights sort of battle that we're seeing right now.
Well, and bragging rights indeed, considering they were just a lap down not too long ago and crawling up out of the hole. So the 64 still has a long ways to go. You know, we're a little bit closer just a lap or so ago, kind of flirting right on that edge of the 1 second, 1.2 second, and that is so important here in the sim because that's kind of where the draft comes into effect, which will help them considering they have the damage.
Yeah, the damage is a crucial point of contention too, and that damage is going to be a case of the oldest adage that has ever been used in motorsport, the most cliched adage, Justin, that has ever been used in motorsport. One legendary commentator who we lost about 2 years and a month ago to the day. Catching is one thing, passing is most certainly another.
Exactly. And for a lot of these drivers, it's been that kind of focal point once they've gone within the range of a battle. How do they set it up? How do they deal with that said traffic? How do they get on by quickly? In the case of the overall lead, it's been kind of worse with the calm point compared to that contrast of what you're talking about in that battle for third outright on the racetrack. So at this moment, that intensity level is starting to reach the highest point, or one of its highest points if it's not already there, because you're about to end off the campaign with the sunshine trying to shine right into your face. Good luck with that if you're running down the Almond Straight to be able to make the send, and good luck if you're a car in the slower class who just so happens to be right where your sun blind spot is.
19.3 seconds down to 18.8 at this point for Nate Grzelski, who has been driving fantastically at this point in the race. This is all about now just bringing this one on home, and you've got to say at this moment in time he is well on his way towards victory in not just class, not just category, but championship-wise as well. In terms of how they go through for P3 overall, Gabriel Roos had a couple hold-ups, Joey, over the course of that last lap, and that's why he struggled a little bit. That gap's ballooned out to 1.6 seconds. It's teetering, it's tottering, it's not falling down.
No, it isn't, and it seems like whenever the GT cars come into play here, Christopher Schmeller is able to just navigate through it a little bit easier. Oh, huge moment for Gabriel Roos. Almost lost it there in turn 10. Had to get completely out of the gas, and look at this. That cost him a second on the racetrack, now up to 2.5 seconds behind Christopher.
So is this the point where you say Gabriel Roos is trying too hard? Goodness me. Now that's even more impressive, the way that he saved that, because he's gone hard right on it, hoping that the car's going to have some grip, instead of trying to save that hard left. So he's only had one correction there, just in hard left, but two super huge carves at the steering wheel right.
Yeah, that was very lucky.
I'm going to jump in here, and I'm going to say that's a little bit of sim tricks right there, because what he did is he cranked it hard right, and basically induced understeer into the car to help stop the spin, and also probably jumped on the brakes. But hey, you know what? Whatever works. I just learned something new.
Well, Joey, I look forward for you to seeing that in your sim racing aspects, and hopefully that'll be all good for the future. But 5 minutes will soon remain on the clock. There is Ross Booth, currently has things, we believe, as a championship. There are, of course, the fastest lap bonus points, which come in per class, which are going to be important. Those are 5 bonus points. Then you've got to talk about qualifiers in each division, and you consider where everybody qualified overall. Composite took the pole position, so they take the maximum points. They boost their margin by an extra 5 championship points out there overall, because basically they were the only team who were allowed to qualify. And an instant rate is an interesting one, because guess what here, Justin? We don't have the privilege to see who's got how many incidents.
Well, when the last driver takes the check flag, we'll definitely start seeing that moment. So at that point, don't stress yourself, or rather, don't stress yourself at this point. The question is going to be looking like third for the GT cars on the track is shuffle, because at least the 107 is passed by them on the bright spot.
Yeah, so that is a pass. And Talk Sim Sport then by Wagner Schweiss Technik have found a way through on the BMW. That a mistake by Franco Margarella so late on in the race into the hotel hairpin. He's just overcooked it. It's a little too deep. He's done well to keep it off of the grass and the dirt. But there, Joey, that is your we're 7 hours, 55 minutes in style mistake, a missed braking point.
Oh, and it's just heartbreaking for Composite and Franco out there, because that is the podium. Simone Graf now in the 107, standing in that third place position. And I've noticed that also Simone coming into form now. I think the McLaren gets fast, the lighter it gets on the fuel, just like any of the other cars. But finally dipping into the 159s is Simone. This is the pace I think we were looking for when he first hopped in the car.
Yeah, I think it is as well, and the fact that he was struggling so much on the heavy fuel tank, I think certainly hasn't helped him in terms of trying to recover back through, and that's why the 26 seconds you feel that he has over to the lead is one of the reasons why he's gone through. This has been an incredible season here with the Global SimRacing Channel, bringing you coverage of the MTEC Championship, the Majors Teams Endurance Championship, and one which I'm sure I would love to see more people jump in on, try and get themselves involved in, because it is one of these unique series that go through, and the work that goes through, and the ingenuity of how this series is built and created. God, you can't get much closer than that, Nate Groszelski, with 2 laps to go. I think is something, Justin, that you look at and go, there's an incredible amount of thought that goes into this process. It leans on a lot of real-world processes, and I think for sim racing, it does a marvelous job.
Been a marvelous race in turn, I will say as well. Even with some of the close moments we've seen from the Blue Shoe Black car as of late, with some of the slip and slides, they've had the outright pace, it seems, once they've been able to get longer runs going, be able to run off, run away, run, pull forward. If you're Blue Chew, you're going to be very much celebrating very hard, to say the very least, when it comes to something to chew on and think about over time here.
Yeah, there is a lot to look at. There is a lot to be excited about. And this for Ross Booth is him 2 laps away from getting everything that is possibly wanted and then some, as he will pilot his way through turn 1, in through turn 2, and now through towards turn number 3 out on circuit. And just noticed there that Nate Groszelski was a little slow on the pickup, actually going through Tower Corner. So I wonder if he's trying to work out, well, what do I do to go through? And not often that you see a car struggling a little bit there to get through. It was a little weird coming off the tower there, Joey. That gave me a little bit of a scare.
Yeah, I'm going back and looking at it here, and I thought maybe it was just some GT traffic that held him up, but no, you're right. It looks like he gets into the tower turn just fine, comes out, and yeah, just slow on the racetrack, but then immediately picks it up. It kind of, you know what it looks like? Maybe he had an itch on his foot or something and had to take his foot off of the pedals.
It definitely looked like that because there was definitely no throttle input that went through at that section. He does start, though, the last lap of the MTEC season with a 19-second gap at the front of the field. Nate Grzelski with Nathan Zhu. The work that they've done is sensational and has been over the course. The 191 car also will soon turn to the final lap. Twin Turn will take the Pro-Am category in your GT category overall. And then you've got to consider Blue Chew Black as well, who go on to their final lap with a 1.3 second margin over Gabriel Roos. And they know, as Gabriel Roos gets bottled up behind Anthony James, that their third place may just be safe if they don't make a mistake, and they will take a victory in category there as well. Justin, this has been a great run by Blue Chew Black.
A brilliant run, like I just said. Even when they've nearly made the mistakes, they've just built up such a buffer. They've been able to take advantage of how big that said buffer is when they make the said mistakes. It's been dominating pace much of the day. Blue Chew, I think, is about to have a very big party as long as they don't get lit on fire by those flames from Torque.
Simon Graf will allow them to go through, and all of a sudden, this will become a reality for the team. 8 hours worth of battling here in the MTEC finale. Over a day and a half's worth of in-sim racing time, and it will turn to a championship. Blue Chew Black will come to the line, and they will take not only the victory, but the title with their composite position as they've gone through. Not to take any credit away from Composite Performance, who will be second in their category. The next car that will come over the line will be the 024 out there of Blue Chew Blue Joey, who will at this stage take the AM honours ahead of both of the quality control cars who failed quality control today.
Just got to get through turn 17 over the bumps. The final time sees that checkered flag. Christopher Schmeller and Blue Chew Blue standing on that third step of the podium. Great job there for that 024 car, and that leads us to Ross Booth going down the straightaway.
It absolutely does, and Justin, Ross Booth, you turn an eye to what he is as a driver. He is incredible with a turn of pace, and when he needed to turn up in the final stint, it was strategy that unlocked it for him.
Strategy, and having great pace at the very end. They saved the best for the checkered. Ross Booth, what a drive to end the season.
A victory and what we believe is a championship to go with as well. Brilliant work from Composite, overhauling a 25-point margin over the final stages. This championship was in no doubt. Marc Antonio Federa driving with Twin Turn Sim Racing, Sebastian Isenberg, and the likes of Michael Marlowe as well. They all put together an incredible showcase of driving, and they have dominated the GT Am series or Pro Am series. They look like the sort of group that will join up through. Get the noise out, because that is where drivers have themselves the chance to finally enjoy all of the runs that they have put together. And my word, Joey, has this been a well-deserved season from all of them.
Yeah, well-deserved. I love the fresh taste and smell of donuts. Although I gotta admit, it's kind of weird to do it on the front straightaway. I figured down in the runoff of turn 7 down there might have worked a little bit better, but here's the two leaders, the 14 and the 191. Maybe get a little bit of a tandem burnout here. All three winners right here.
All three winners there doing well, and on top of that, we saw the Torque Sim Sport by Wagner Schweiss Technic car slowing down on the final lap, so they give away the overall podium then here at Sebring, because they were looking to try and find a finish and get themselves over the line. We're going to step aside, though, for just one moment. When it comes to our action here with the Global SimRacing Channel, we'll be back with post-race coverage then here from the Sebring International Raceway as we bring to a close the Majors Teams Endurance Championship.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
There's a bear in the woods.
Right, come on, you fatty. Come on, fatty.
I don't even know who lives in there or what the hell's going on there.
Could I sleep in there today? Oh, no room.
And we're on the way there. Ignore the fart. We go, and a bit of that, and a bit of...
Singers, James, singers I've got.
My pedal broke, man.
And thanks to Showdown Bros, Mickey's on the most useless street in the world. Come on!
Always keep a shoe in your kitchen department, guys. Don't worry, it's the COVID talking. It's probably wild boar, a few bears, a lot of women washing their cars saying hi on the side of the road.
Go on, Mick, feel it, Mick, feel it. I might be going mad.
Want to see me underwear?
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to what is the final results here from the Sebring International Raceway, the Majors Teams Endurance Championship, and the overall victory taken by Blue Chew Black. They take the Prototype Championship through 8 hours, a minute, and 8 seconds worth of driving. They won the race by 18.9 seconds over composite performance number 13, with Blue Chew Blue taking championship overall when it came to the GT Pro, the LMP2 Pro-Am, I should say, with their run into third position. They're able to hold off a Satellite Racing Red team that was a number of laps down for the majority of this race, had a bit of luck with cautions to come back into play. They finished fourth ahead of BRT Loki and Apex Misses fifth and sixth, the last finishers on the leading lap. Precision Racing Esports Blue would finish off in seventh ahead of Quality Control Racing 074, which had a 3-lap penalty handed in the back pocket. Recycled NRG will be in 9th position, with Quality Control Racing 063 rounding out the top 10 in category. You then look down the further list, you hit the retirements, BRT Odin, Quality Control Racing 079, and Satellite Racing Blue not finding finishers in class. Justin, you took an eye on the GT categories here this evening.
Yes, indeed. Composite performance. The 191 machine able to run off into the sunset down the Omen Straight to be able to pull off a dominating class victory, 18 seconds over the Pro-Am winners, Twin Turn Sim Racing. In turn, composite performance also zipped on by Torque Sim Sport by Wagner from Technic, because the 107, from what our understanding is, ran out of fuel on the final lap, was 2 laps short to be able to make it to the end on gas. Still able to come away second in the pro side of the card. BRT Heimdall finished 14th overall in the card type, 5th in the card type, 14th overall. Not recommended motorsport, Precision Racing Esports Black, CMSRacing.com Endurance. Followed by Century Sim Esports, Going Racing, Ruby, and M-Plower able to survive to finish 31 laps down, just behind them amongst the top 10 in the card type. Amongst the DNF list today, 2 of the Torque SimSport machines that are other cars, the 271 and 290, the Quality Control GT, as well as Satellite Racing's GT3M entry, the 265, and the 261, only made it a few laps. A bit out of order per se there. They were actually 239 down, but they made it 2 laps, to be honest, today. 2.
Yeah, 2 laps short, and I'm sure that you're going to be seeing a lot more of that as they go and get things all there. We are going to bring in, though, drivers for a bit of a conversation. We'll first start off with Sebastian Isenberg, then part of the Twin Turn Sim Racing team, who has stood by with Joey Atterbury.
Yeah, well, Sebastian, you gotta be happy here with the 2nd place overall in GT, and really good run to hang on to the back of Composite and Ross there at the end of the race.
Yeah, for sure. I'm happy. We won the overall championship and today the endurance championship as well. So yeah, good race. I'm happy.
Well,
I have no words.
Yeah, no, you mentioned it. You are the champs there in that GT division, that Pro-Am results.
Yeah,
and
Pro-Am.
It's the 7 races that you guys did. You're standing on top by quite a margin. And tell us a little bit, how does that feel to be champs right now?
It feels amazing. Yeah, like I said, I have no words really. We are just a small group, but the spirit was awesome. Positive vibes all around, and yeah, it's amazing.
And looking at this, 681 coming in, you guys had a pretty big gap over the other composite performance car. And do you think the Porsche was really the car to have this season, or was it just teamwork and camaraderie working together throughout all of these rounds to build that gap?
Yeah, the Porsche suits us pretty well, but it was more about the spirit as we swapped for the Lambo for Le Mans and Spa. Yeah, this was not all around the Porsche. It's just a spirit in our team and how we try to work things out. Yeah.
Well, Sebastian,
about my teammates.
Yeah, well, it is important, especially with these long endurance races, to all get along out here. And looking forward, you just crowned champions. Are you guys going to be back? I hope so. And maybe more than one car, you think, in the future? Or are you going to stick with just the Porsche?
Yes. We want to field more cars in the next season, and maybe one LMP2 car and 2 GTs. But yeah, the future will show how it will work out. Yeah, and definitely I want to thank the admin team for organizing all this. It was an amazing league. Yeah, we are just having fun here. It's awesome.
Well, and the last thing, since you are champs, you probably have some people you want to thank, whether it's teammates or friends that helped you along the way. Now's your opportunity.
Yeah, it's my teammates, Marlo, Mark, and Dominic. They are all amazing. We have a very positive spirit, very supportive, and it helps everyone to develop here. Yeah, that's all.
That is Twin Turn Sim Racing, your GT Pro-Am winners here at Sebring, and also the champs of that Pro-Am division.
Yeah, they've done a wonderful job being champions of their division. Joining us next, though, will be a trio who managed to pick up their own Pro-Am title. Peter Houston, Patrick McDaniel, and I believe we were going to get Mr. Schmelier into play as well, but I don't think we will. Justin Prince, though, has taken a walk down virtual pit lane to have a conversation.
Yes, indeed. And for you guys, a strong performance once more in respect to this side of things. Top 3 overall on the racetrack. First of all, Patrick, how does it feel in terms of your season performance to come down to how well you did today? Pro-Am victory today, and in turn, championship towards your direction.
Yeah, it was great. We put in a lot of work for Sebring between the last 2 weeks, the Sebring 12-hour, and it paid off. We had really good pace all day, and aside from the little mistake that Chris had on the restart, it was a solid day all around.
So in your regard, for your side, Peter, today is well a huge day for the organization and your respective group, especially, first of all, on the AM side. How in term would you describe the feelings from your perspective on terms of how well you guys drove all throughout the day, had to battle back from some of the troubles early on in the day, and in turn still able to come away with the top spot after, well, everything caught on fire around you?
So I think most of the race, it was pretty calm. To be honest, we never really felt like this win was in doubt, except for maybe a little moment there at the last V-start, but we had it under control.
Very calm, cool, and collected with the Blue Chew machinery, but how would you describe the efforts throughout this campaign? Because both your cars, in the Pro and the AM side, Peter, very strong throughout the year. How was that effort throughout the campaign? Or rather, how would you describe those efforts to keep the speed going?
Well, it's definitely great to have so many drivers working together, racing the same car on the same track. We all learn a lot from each other, and I think that's responsible for a lot of our pace.
So, Patrick, in turn, what does the championship mean to you guys, knowing that essentially, look at the points, may or may not be the double championship way for your respective banner?
Oh, it's huge. This is most likely the last race will be in these colors. We've had some team changes along the line, and we may have some more coming up soon. So, yeah, it's special. I mean, we've been running these colors for the last 3 years or so, so it's special.
Any reason for the change?
Just change of directions.
Gotcha. Anyone you want to thank for being a part of these colors coming away with the championship before the switch out?
Well, I had 3 hours here so don't play me off with the piano music. So first out, shout out to our team captain, Dan Neese, who is a weekend warrior, busy defending us from Chinese spy balloons and TikTok dances. Big thanks to Chris and Peter for being solid all season and building gaps for me to give them away. Thanks to Nathan Jew for the killer setup and making me look almost fast. Thanks to MTEC and all the men for putting up with all our crap. And of course, thanks to you guys for putting on a good show.
That went into direction. Congratulations on becoming champions by going the right direction all season on the track.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
Yep, thanks.
Back to you, Jake.
Thank you. There you have it then. That was the the LMP Pro-Am champions there. Joining us now is Robert Cast and Ross Booth. A brilliant display of driving to take the victory. They're stood by with Joey Atterbury.
Yeah, well, Ross, let's start off with you because you just closed out this stint here at Sebring, and it wasn't too easy. You found yourself swarmed by 3 other cars, even though you weren't on the same fuel strategy. You did what it takes. You came out on top of the 107, and you guys are champs, not only in the race, but in the pro category.
Yeah, that was an awesome race between us and the 107. I don't think I've ever been in a situation where we're only really racing one car today, and the cat and mouse games that we played the whole race. I'm not sure if the broadcast caught up on it, but I was leading him, and then he'd be leading me or Rob, and we'd be backing each other up to third to try and mess with each other, and it was just a wild fuel strategy race. It was crazy.
Well, and talk to me a little bit about that, because I know that you kind of had the advantage on the strategy. How much were you playing the mind games out there, and when did you finally realize you just needed to take off and hit the gas?
Well, with that last safety car really threw a wrench into our plan. We figured we were a pit stop ahead of them before this last safety car came out. So we were just biding our time and keeping it clean. And then once the safety car came out, I was quite shocked that they didn't pit, because we would all been on the same strategy to the end. But they chose to stay out, and it worked out really well in our favor.
Well, now, Robert, I want to bring you in here because this is a team sport. You had some killer stints earlier in the race, and seemed like you guys had this Porsche hooked up at Sebring. When did you guys kind of figure out that you were going to beat the 107 for this championship?
To be honest, I think it was in probably the last hour when, like Ross said, with the safety car, we were battling back and forth. We were talking about strategy and what we were thinking they were going to do. And when they didn't pit, we kind of figured it was our championship win. I mean, there was nothing else they could do, because we just had a short fuel, and we would have had multiple seconds on them just coming out of the pits just on that. So I think in that last hour is where we kind of figured it was in our hands.
Well, and now that you've got the full season of MTEC under your belt, you're officially GT Pro champs. Robert, how does it feel?
It feels pretty dang good. It's we got a lot of wins, Ross and I, in the last few months. We won quite a few races, and it's been a big journey and a fun journey, and just want to look forward to a bunch more with them.
Well, and before I let you guys go, this entire Composite Performance 91 team, who do you want to thank?
I just want to thank our captain, Dom. He keeps us all aboard the ship and keep going the right direction. I want to thank our sponsors, Grid and SimLab, for everything that they do for us and providing us the best sim gear on the market. And just shout out to the 107 car for the excellent championship this season. It came down to the last race, and that's what you want as a race car driver. It was a lot of fun, so shout out to them.
Well, that was the Composite Performance 91. I always love the competitor shout-outs because, yes, that was a huge battle, and it came down to really the closing minutes here at Sebring.
It certainly did, and the final battles as well were going on for the big fish in the biggest pond. That, of course, being your your LMP Pro category division. It is Nate Grzelski and Nathan Zhu who are joining Justin Prince right now down on virtual pit lane.
Yes, indeed, a double championship indeed for Blue Chew. It was talked about just before a changing of the look of these cars. A big day for your organization. First of all, I'll start with you, Nathan. Poggers, indeed, you're a champion. How's it feel?
Oh, well, which Nathan?
Wait, there's two Nathan. Okay, the one that's nicknamed Poggers.
Oh yeah. Thanks. Yeah, no, it was a good win. Very, very happy. I think we had all our bases covered. Nate did a great job, and yeah, not much else to say.
That's Nathan Drew in terms of that regard. So, in terms of Nathan Grzelski on your respective side, first of all, talk us through the race in of itself today, because you had to come back from several circumstances, had a battle with the lap car, had to come through for a drive-through penalty at one point, and still, despite the drive-through penalty, took the lead back within an hour and a half.
Yeah, it was wild. I have one request though. Could we pull in our team captain Dan, possibly, to have a word? Sweet, thank you. No, but it was crazy. There was a lot going on. We got pretty lucky with the unfortunate incident that the satellite red car had. So we were just hoping we didn't have too many safety cars, and we ended up having the max. So that was a little bit sketchy, but massive respect for the effort they put in to get back into the battle as much as they could. But yeah, it was kind of a lot to deal with, but it was a good race.
It was just mentioned by the Nathans, team captain Dan Neese. Dan, double championship for your group, Pro-Am and Pro Championships in the prototypes. In regards to your side of that, what's kind of the reaction from the captain side of things with how strong the season ends off here today at Sebring?
Yeah, honestly, super proud of the boys. Killed it this whole season. Especially coming into this league, most people probably didn't know who we were. And, you know, we had a pretty tough start at the beginning. Us and Satellite were duking it out pretty hard the entire season. You know, for us to come on top is pretty awesome. Honestly, big shouts out to them too. Their guys were killing it every single weekend, and they made us really push our butts off for it. And I'm sure we were giving them the same feeling. So it was a great thing to do. You know, also shout out to Eric for running the league and all that. I got to race like the first half of the season, but fortunately with my obligations, I didn't get to race the second half. So I came in and watched in Discord pretty much every single race. And this one, I brought my computer with me to my hotel so I could sit there and be their spotter for pretty much the entire race that I was home. So, you know, couldn't be more than proud of my team.
Well, a strong day for you and your organization, and I'm very curious on the obligations now, if you don't mind me asking.
I'm in the military, so I'm a reservist. So 1 week in a month, I'm Uncle Sam's best friend. So,
well, Nathan Drew, in your respective side as a driver's side, first of all, again, in terms of the way things have played out for you, how would you describe that in turn drive throughout this entire campaign to make sure you kept the speed up? After all, you were shouted out from the Pro-Am side as, well, I'm not sure how exactly to phrase the response, but it was very appreciative when you can interpret it, the true message from Patrick McDaniel.
Oh, yeah, it's just nice. I mean, I do what I can to help out everybody on the team. You know, we all try to take a look at each other's telemetry and, you know, learn where we can find some time. And so, you know, I'm just happy to be with a group of people that can help push me, but I can also help push them. It's a good feeling to have in a team.
So, Dan, on that note, I'll give it to you. Anyone you want to give a shout out to as part of your organization's double championship?
Honestly, just shout out the whole squad. Pretty much everybody on the team. Everybody here puts in a heck of a lot of work. And, you know, I'm very glad that I have the group of guys around me. I do. Everybody in here, you know, functions really well together, and everybody puts in a lot of practice, and we do a really good job of just pushing each other to make sure that everybody's putting in the most effort. You know, it's something that, you know, really like is a great synergy with our team, you know? So shout out to my team mainly. Shout out to you guys for broadcasting the whole season. I got to be probably your guys' biggest YouTube fan, watching it pretty much every weekend when I was gone. And shout out also to, you know, the Eric and all them for running the league. They did a heck of a job. You know, sometimes some people might have had some disagreements with the calls, but I feel like they were pretty consistent with them at least. And, you know, I couldn't do more to appreciate that. So
shout out Brandon.
Oh yeah, Brandon.
Brandon too. Brandon.
They both drove for us earlier in the season.
Yeah, Brandon is currently in Korea right now, so he couldn't do the whole season. But shout out to him for coming in for a couple races and helping us out too.
Well, guys, congratulations once again on the championship, a double championship, in fact, for your organization.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Dan Neese and the Nathans. Once again from Blue Chew Black. Coming away with the championship, Jake.
Yeah, brilliant work from them, and they absolutely deserved it. But that is going to do it then for us with MTEC's coverage here with the Global SimRacing Channel. I want to give a massive thanks to everyone who has been a part of this today, from Zach Johnson to Derek Watson, Craig King, likes of Ozzy Pahaka, who's been there, of course, Michael DeTurk, who is alongside earlier with me, Ryan Bauer, who's been along with us on the cameras, of course, Justin, you put on that, Sam Ryman, Joey Atterbury, and of course, one Mr. Dougie Beard on top of that. I want to give a massive thanks to everyone who has worked in terms of all of our partners. You can find our stuff all around. You can get us some merchandise on top of that, as well as follow us on our socials. Head over to gsrc.storenv.com to make sure you get your lovely sim racing merch. The rest of your broadcast will be scrolling around on your screen in the next couple of moments' time, including tomorrow's action of the Sunday Grand Prix Series, heading itself over to Monza for racing action. Make sure you jump in on that. 4:30 GMT, 5:30 BST for that one, as well as some other things going along as well. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.